A single mother on a blind date said, "I'm not the girl you should meet," but the CEO fell in love precisely for that forbidden reason. A story of courage and true love that will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and comment where you are watching from. The light rain of May fell over New York like a curtain of melancholy, transforming the streets of Brooklyn into dark mirrors reflecting the lights of bars and restaurants. Sarah Johnson adjusted for the 10th time the only dress she owned, a simple navy blue model, bought 3 years ago on sale at H&M, and took a deep breath before pushing open the glass door of the Olive Garden. The warm air enveloping her brought mixed aromas, fresh rosemary from the plants decorating the entrance, pizza dough baking in the wood-fired oven, brewed coffee coming from the Italian kitchen. Her fingers trembled as they gripped the handle of her synthetic leather bag, already worn at the edges, while her brown eyes scanned the environment in search of the man in the photo that Jessica, her best friend since school days, had shown her on her phone 3 days ago. "It's going to be perfect, Sarah," Jessica had insisted with that contagious enthusiasm that characterized her. "He's a sales manager, has a good heart, is looking for someone serious. You deserve a chance to be happy again." Sarah had agreed more out of exhaustion than conviction. At 32, with a 7-year-old daughter to raise alone and a salary as an administrative assistant that barely covered the monthly bills, romantic dates were luxuries she had crossed off her list long ago. But Jessica insisted so much, and there was something in the way her friend spoke about this Mark, sensitive and mature, ready to meet someone with kids, that planted a seed of hope in Sarah's weary heart. But now, standing at the entrance of the restaurant, with the damp dress clinging to her thighs and the medium-heeled shoes that had seen better days sinking into the mat, Sarah felt that something was terribly wrong. The man sitting at the table in the back, with his back to the window overlooking Harmony Street, was not the Mark from the photo. He definitely was not. It was him, David Anderson, CEO of Anderson & Partners, the construction company that employed 246 employees. She knew the exact number because she had typed the data from the last HR report 3 weeks ago. The man whose name was whispered with reverence in the halls of the 12th floor. The man whose signature she saw daily on the documents that crossed her desk, that firm and elegant handwriting approving contracts worth millions. The man who, in the last 8 months since she landed that job through a distant referral, had been merely a remote and imposing presence, someone who hurried through the halls surrounded by directors, someone whose face she mostly saw in the photos in Forbes magazine that were displayed in the reception area. And he was getting up, slowly. His green eyes, she'd never been close enough to notice they were green with tiny golden flecks, wide in shock. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to the elbows, black dress pants, no tie. His dark brown hair was slightly tousled, as if he had run his hands through it several times. Tall, he must have been 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, a posture that, even in evident surprise, maintained something of natural authority. She estimated he was around 36, maybe 37 years old, too young to be in charge of a company of that size, but everyone knew he had inherited the empire from his father. "Sarah," his voice came out hoarse, confused. "Sarah Johnson." The full surname. He knew her full surname. Sarah felt the ground seem unstable beneath her feet. "Mr. Anderson." Her voice came out thinner than she intended, almost a whisper. Other people in the restaurant began to look. A couple at the next table stopped talking. There was a mistake. Are you here because of the app?" He interrupted, his hand still resting on the back of the chair, fingers gripping the wood tightly. "That dating app that—" "It wasn't an app," Sarah interrupted, shaking her head vigorously. Her heart was beating so fast it hurt in her chest. "It was my friend. She set up a blind date, said it was some mark. I would never. The words died in her throat as understanding crossed his face. David closed his eyes for a brief moment, ran his hand through his hair, confirming her suspicion that this gesture was a habit of his. And when he opened his eyes again, there was something different there, something she couldn't decipher, but that made her forget to breathe. "My cousin Mark," he said slowly, as if piecing together a puzzle. "He's been talking for weeks about an amazing woman his girlfriend wanted to introduce him to. He said he was meeting her here today." A short, humorless laugh escaped him. Apparently, someone decided to play Cupid with incomplete information. Sarah took a step back, then another. The bag slipped from her shoulder, and she held it tightly. "I'm not the girl you should meet." The words came out desperate, hoarse with panic. This is impossible. I work for you. I type your contracts, file your documents. I am nobody in your world, Mr. Anderson. This is a terrible mistake, and I need to leave right now." She turned towards the door, her eyes already burning with tears she refused to shed. She had to get out of there before she completely lost her composure. She had to get home, pick up Emily from the landlord's apartment. Grace, the neighbor who took care of her daughter when she needed, hugged the girl and tried to forget that humiliating night had happened. Tomorrow morning, she would arrive at the office 15 minutes early, as always, keep her head down, and pray that he would be man enough to pretend that this disastrous encounter had never occurred. "Wait!" The word was not a request. It was something between a plea and an order, spoken with urgency. "Please, Sarah, wait!" She stopped, but didn't turn around, her eyes fixed on the glass door, on the rain that was now falling harder. Outside, on the people rushing by under colourful umbrellas, anything to avoid looking at him, footsteps behind her. He didn't touch her, kept a respectful distance, but she could feel his presence, could smell the subtle scent of his cologne. Something woody and understated, nothing ostentatious. "Maybe you're exactly who I should meet." The words fell between them like stones in a calm lake, creating ripples that expanded in ever-widening circles. Sarah turned slowly, finally facing him. He was less than 2 meters away, hands in his pockets, as if he needed to force himself to keep distance. Those green eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel simultaneously exposed and seen, truly seen, perhaps for the first time in years. "Mr. Anderson," she began, but he shook his head. "David, here. It's just David, not your boss, not the CEO, just me." "That doesn't change anything," Sarah whispered, but her voice faltered. "Tomorrow I go back to being your employee. You go back to being my boss. This is complicated," he finished. "I know, believe me, I know exactly how complicated this is, but since we're here, since the universe, or Mark, or your friend, or whoever decided we should be in this impossible situation." He paused, biting his lower lip. "Don't you think it would be a waste to leave without at least discovering why someone thought we would be compatible?" Sarah should say no. Every cell in her rational body screamed for her to refuse, politely thank him, and leave that restaurant as quickly as possible. She had a daughter at home, bills to pay, a job she couldn't afford to lose. She couldn't afford complications, especially not complications that wore expensive dress shirts and had last names that opened doors she didn't even know existed. But there was something else, something she hadn't felt in so long that she had almost forgotten the taste. Curiosity. The curiosity to understand how the CEO of Anderson and Partners knew her full name. To understand why he was on a blind date when he could have literally any woman he wanted. To understand why his eyes had that expression when he looked at her, as if she were a mystery he had given up solving but now had an unexpected chance to decipher. 30 minutes, she heard her own voice say, surprising herself. Just to not be rude, since apparently our friends went through so much trouble to make this confusion happen. The smile that lit up his face was small, almost shy, and completely devastating. 30 minutes. Agreed. He gestured to the table, and Sarah followed him there with legs that felt like they weren't her own. She sat in the chair he pulled out, a gesture of chivalry that made her feel strange, because in the office she was invisible, just another employee circulating through the halls. The waiter appeared immediately, delivering the menus with an efficiency that suggested David was already known there. Sarah held the menu but didn't open it. Her stomach was too knotted to think about food. She looked out the window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass, while feeling the weight of his gaze on her. "You always arrive 15 minutes early," David said suddenly, making her turn her face abruptly toward him. He was fiddling with his glass of water, not looking directly at her, as if he were confessing something he shouldn't. "At work, always 15 minutes before the hour, never late, never absent." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "How do you—" "I notice things." He finally looked at her, and there was something vulnerable in his eyes. "I know you organize the files differently than the company asks, but your way is better, more logical. I know you bring your lunch and always heat it in the microwave, exactly at 12:15. I know that every Monday you wear a light blue blouse that matches your eyes, that every Wednesday you style your hair differently because it's the day you pick up your daughter early from school." He paused. "I know that when you talk on the phone with her during your break, your eyes shine in a way that I've never seen in anyone." The silence that followed was thick, heavy with unspoken meanings. Sarah couldn't breathe properly. All those observations, all those tiny details of her life that she thought no one noticed, and he had noticed. For 8 months, while she saw him as a distant and inaccessible presence, he had been paying attention to her. Why? The question came out broken, confused. "Why would you notice those things about me? I'm just an administrative assistant, Mr. Anderson." "David," she corrected herself when she saw him frown. "There are 200 people working at that company. Why me?" David leaned slightly forward, resting his elbows on the table. The soft light of the restaurant played on his face, highlighting the strong line of his jaw, the small, almost invisible scar near his left eyebrow. "Because you're real," he said simply, and the intensity in his voice made her tremble. "In this world where I grew up, full of people who want something from me, my last name, my bank account, my influence, you are the only person who treats me like I'm an obstacle. You turn away when you see me in the hallway. You speak to me in monosyllables when absolutely necessary. You've never asked for favors, never tried to impress, never even given me a fake smile." He let out a short laugh. "And that is absurdly attractive." Sarah blinked, processing those words. "You're telling me that you're attracted to me because I ignore you." "I'm saying that you attract me because you're not pretending to be someone else around me. Because when I look at you, I see someone with iron dignity, with quiet strength, with real priorities that don't include impressing people she barely knows." He ran his hand through his hair again, that already familiar gesture. "And because when our eyes met today, when you realized it was me, the first thing you thought wasn't 'what an opportunity,' it was 'what a disaster.' And that says more about your character than 1,000 resumes." The waiter returned, discreetly asking if they wanted to order. David ordered a mushroom risotto and red wine. She ordered a pasta with tomato sauce, the cheapest item she quickly saw, and water. When they were alone, again, Sarah took a deep breath. "I have a daughter," she said, deciding to get straight to the point. If they had 30 minutes, they should be honest. "Emily, 7 years old. Her father left us when she was 2. I've been working since I was 15. I never finished college because I had no one to leave Emily with when she was born. I rent an apartment in Queens, sharing it with my younger sister. My salary pays the bills by miracle and creativity. I patch my clothes when they tear because I can't buy new ones. These shoes," she pointed to her feet under the table, "are 3 years old, and I've already glued the sole twice." She looked directly at him, lifting her chin with wounded pride. "This is my world, David. It's honest, it's hard, but it's mine. And I'm not going to complicate the only stable source of income I've managed to get in years because someone decided to play Cupid. I can't." David held her gaze, not looking away, showing no pity or discomfort. "I understand," he said calmly, "and I respect that, more than you can imagine." He drummed his fingers on the table, thoughtful. "My turn to be honest." Sarah nodded, curious despite herself. "I inherited the company at 28 when my father had a stroke. I didn't earn it, I didn't build it. I just woke up one day being CEO because I carry the right last name. I grew up wealthy, surrounded by people who said yes to everything, who never challenged me, who saw me as a walking check. I was engaged once," he let out as if the word burned. "She was more interested in the 3-carat ring than in me. She broke it off weeks before the wedding when she found out I was thinking of donating part of the inheritance to social projects." He spun the glass of water between his hands. "My mother controls 40% of the company's shares and has very clear opinions on who I should date. I've been introduced to suitable women, lawyers, businesswomen, heiresses, since I became single, all beautiful, all successful, all absolutely empty to me." He looked at her with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. Until one day, 8 months ago, a woman walked into the corporate elevator with a lunchbox in her hand and a determined sparkle in her eyes. And since then, I can't stop noticing every damn detail about her. The dishes arrived. The rich aroma of the risotto and homemade tomato sauce filled the space between them. They ate in silence for a few minutes, a silence that strangely wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if they were both processing, recalibrating, trying to understand how they got there. "This can't work," Sarah eventually said, her voice low but firm. "You understand that, right? It's not just about me being your employee. It's about different worlds. You go to restaurants where a meal costs more than I spend on rent in a month. I buy clothes at thrift stores and consider pizza on the weekend a luxury. Your mother would probably have a fit if she knew you were having dinner with me." "Probably," he agreed with a half-smile. "But she doesn't need to know, not yet at least." "Not yet?" Sarah dropped her fork, looking at him incredulously. You're suggesting what exactly?" David also stopped eating. He leaned forward, those green eyes fixed on her with a seriousness that made her tremble. "I'm suggesting that maybe we can figure out what this is about. Discreetly. No pressure, no crazy expectations. Just getting to know each other outside those hallways and that hierarchy. To see if what I feel when I look at you is real or if it's just a fantasy of a lonely man." "And if it is real," Sarah whispered, "and if it's real and impossible the same way. I have a daughter, David. I can't put her stability at risk. I can't." "Then we won't." His response was immediate. "Look, I don't know how this will work. I don't know if it will work. But I know that if we let this night end here, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what if. And I already have too many what-ifs haunting me." Sarah looked at her half-eaten plate, at his hands on the table, large hands with long fingers, a small scar on his thumb, at his face with that expression of raw vulnerability that probably few people had ever seen. She thought of Emily, who was safe in Grace's apartment, probably watching Frozen for the 1,000th time. She thought of the overdue bills. The rent, due in 2 weeks, the electricity bill that was a bit higher this month, and she thought it had been a long, long time since she felt her heart race like that. She hadn't felt seen, desired, or interesting to anyone. She hadn't considered the possibility of being anything beyond a mother and an employee. 30 minutes have passed, she said softly, but she didn't get up. They have, he agreed, a small smile curving his lips. Want another 30? Sarah should have said no. She knew that. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, I like tiramisu. I've never really had it, just those store-bought versions, but I've always wanted to try the real thing. His smile widened, genuine and devastating. They make the best tiramisu in Brooklyn. And there, in that Italian restaurant on a rainy May day, Sarah Johnson made the most dangerous and exciting decision of her life. She stayed. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in pretense. Sarah arrived at the Anderson & Partners office every day at 7:45 in the morning, 15 minutes before the official start time, just as she always had. She sat at her desk on the 12th floor in the administrative area, where 6 other assistants shared the open space, divided only by light grey cubicles, and powered on her computer with the same efficiency as always. She typed contracts, filed documents, answered phone calls with the polite and professional voice she had honed over the months. To any casual observer, Sarah Johnson was exactly who she had always been, a dedicated, discreet employee who did her job with precision and left promptly at 5:30 to pick up her daughter. But inside, she was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions that threatened to spill over at any moment. Because now, whenever David Anderson walked down the hallway, something he seemed to do with suspicious frequency, she felt it. She felt the air change, the subtle scent of his woody cologne, the weight of his gaze even when he kept his eyes fixed on his computer screen. It was as if her entire body had developed a specific radar for his presence, a sixth sense that alerted her seconds before he appeared. And the worst, or perhaps the best, she wasn't sure yet, was that she sensed the same from him. She noticed how he slowed his pace as he passed. Her desk, how his green eyes sought hers for mere milliseconds before darting away, how his right hand always went to his hair in that gesture she now recognized as nervousness. One morning, he passed by her carrying a folder and stumbled over his own foot while looking at her. He managed to recover quickly, but not before Sarah saw the flush rise up his neck. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson," she said on that occasion, her voice carefully neutral, but with a ghost of a smile on her lips. "Good morning, Miss Johnson," he replied formally, but there was a spark in his eyes that said everything his words could not. Joan, the deskmate next to her, leaned over to Sarah as soon as David disappeared down the hallway. "Did you see?" The boss almost fell. "I've never seen him so clumsy. He must have a lot on his mind, poor thing." She sighed dramatically. "Even millionaires have problems, right?" Sarah merely murmured something non-committal and returned to typing, but her heart raced. It was dangerous. It was insane. And yet it was electrifying in a way that scared her. Their meetings happened outside of work hours and far from any place where they could be recognized. David was careful, almost obsessively cautious, and Sarah was grateful for that. They met in small cafes in distant neighborhoods, walked through parks in the late afternoon, and once went to a cinema in a nearby town where they watched a subtitled French film in a virtually empty theater. He always arrived in different cars. Sarah suspected he took Uber or a taxi to avoid being tracked, and she always lied to Grace about having a class or a late parent meeting. The guilt of lying to the neighbor who cared for Emily so lovingly gnawed at her inside. But how could she explain? "Look, Grace, I'm secretly dating my multimillionaire boss because this could cost me my job and ruin any reputation I have." The very idea was absurd. Emily, however, was starting to notice something. Kids had that sharp intuition that adults lost over time. "Mommy looks pretty today," she commented one Thursday morning, watching Sarah apply lipstick for the 3rd time before leaving. It was a cheap nude pink lipstick, but Sarah found herself using it more often. Are you going to meet someone? Sarah's heart skipped a beat. I'm going to work, sweetheart, just like every day. But you seem different. Emily tilted her head, those brown eyes just like her mother's studying her with disconcerting attention. You're glowing. Sarah knelt in front of her daughter, holding her small shoulders. Mommy is just happy today. Can I be happy? You can. Emily smiled, revealing the gap where her baby tooth had fallen out the week before. I like it when you're happy. You sing in the shower again. And it was true. Sarah had started singing in the shower again, something she hadn't done since before Emily's father left. The small joys she had forgotten how to feel were coming back. The pleasure of choosing which shirt to wear in the morning, the excitement of washing her hair with more care, the silly smile that appeared out of nowhere while cooking. During the second week of this dangerous game, David took her to a bookstore in a nearby neighborhood that stayed open late. It was a cozy place, filled with the smell of paper and coffee, wooden shelves that reached from floor to ceiling, narrow stairs that creaked and corners with worn armchairs where people could read. Sarah lost herself in the shelves of literature while David watched, leaning against a column, simply looking at her with an expression she couldn't fully decipher, but that made her feel butterflies in her stomach. "Do you like to read?" he asked, when she picked up a copy of Jane Austen. "When I have time, which is almost never." Sarah ran her fingers along the spine of the book with reverence. "But literature is my refuge. When Emily sleeps and I have 20 minutes before I crash from exhaustion, I read. It's my way of traveling without leaving my spot." "Take that one." David pointed to the book. "I can't. It's $28. It's out of my budget this month." His expression tightened slightly. "Sarah, no." She was firm, returning the book to the shelf. "I know that for you, $28 is nothing, David, but for me it's a principle. I don't want you to buy things for me. I don't want—" She paused, searching for the right words. "I don't want this to be about money. I need it to be about something else, anything else." He took her hand, the first time they touched beyond polite greetings, their fingers intertwining with a naturalness that seemed impossible for two such different people. "All right, I understand. But let me tell you something. You're the first person in my adult life who refuses when I offer something. And that is, it's sexy in a way you can't even imagine." Sarah laughed, shaking her head. "You have a very strange concept of sexy. I have a very clear concept of authenticity, and that is indeed sexy." They walked through the streets of Little Italy to a small bar where they ate empanadas and drank sugarcane juice. David insisted on paying. "Let me at least have this illusion of chivalry." And she accepted because it was $12 in total, and she wasn't going to start a war over empanadas. They talked about books, about music, about the absurd differences in their childhoods. "My dad gave me a car when I turned 18, David said, fiddling with the straw in his sugarcane juice. "A convertible Mercedes, metallic blue. I hated it." "You hated getting a Mercedes?" Sarah couldn't hide her incredulity. "I hated it because it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted him to be at my high school graduation. I wanted him to ask about my college plans. I wanted presents, but it was easier for him to throw money at the problem." David looked at her. "You know that movie scene where the dad and son play ball in the backyard? I never had that. My dad was always working, always in meetings, always building the empire, and when he had the stroke and I had to take over, I realized I hadn't learned anything real. I learned to sign contracts, not to lead people." Sarah touched his hand across the table. "But you're learning now. All the employees speak highly of you. They say you're fair, that you listen to people, that you implemented extended paternity leave last year. That counts. It's the least I can do. I still feel like a fraud most of the time. Welcome to the club. Sarah smiled sadly. I feel like a fraud every day. A fraud as a mother, because I can't give half of what I wanted to Emily. A fraud as an employee because I don't have a degree. A fraud as a woman because I look in the mirror and see someone tired, aged before her time. Look at you, David said softly, his eyes fixed on her with intensity, and I see someone too strong for her own conscience. I see someone building a dignified life against all odds. I see a mother raising an amazing child alone. I see a woman who refuses to be bought or impressed. I see the most real person I've ever met. The moment was interrupted by Sarah's phone vibrating. Mrs. Grace. Hi, Mrs. Grace. Is there a problem? Nothing much, dear. Emily is just asking when you'll be home. She's a bit clingy today. Sarah looked at the clock. 10 p.m. I'm on my way. 15 minutes. She hung up and looked at David with regret. I know. He was already standing, leaving money on the table. Let me take you in an Uber, at least close to your house. It can't be too close. If someone sees 2 blocks before, then deal. In the car, sitting in the back seat while the driver drove in silence, David held her hand again. This is insane, he whispered. I see you every day at the office, and I have to pretend that you're not the only thing I can think about. It's torture. It is for me too, Sarah admitted, but it's necessary. You know it is. I know. Doesn't mean it's any easier. When the Uber stopped 2 blocks before Sarah's address, she hesitated before getting out. She turned to David, saw his expression in the dark of the car, that mix of desire and frustration and something deeper that she was afraid to name. Good night, David. Good night, Sarah. She got out of the car and walked quickly home, her heart still racing. When she entered the apartment, Emily was sleeping on the couch, curled up under a blanket. Mrs. Grace stood up, collecting her crochet bag. She tried to wait for you, but couldn't. What a sweet girl. Sarah paid for the 4 hours, $24 that made a difference in the tight budget, and thanked her. After the neighbor left, she carried Emily to the bedroom, laid her down on the bed, and lay next to her daughter, watching her peaceful little face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry if I'm being selfish. I'm sorry if this goes wrong and ruins everything. Emily stirred in her sleep, tucking her little hand into Sarah's. And there in that small room in Queens, with the sound of cars on the street and the smell of food from the neighboring apartment wafting through the window, Sarah cried silently. She cried because she was scared. She cried because she was happy. She cried because for the first time in years she felt alive in a way that went beyond just surviving. And she cried because she knew deep down that this couldn't end well. The next morning at the office, something different happened. David didn't just walk down the hallway. He stopped. At her desk, with witnesses, with Jessica and 3 other colleagues watching. Miss Johnson. His voice was formal, distant, but Laura detected an underlying tension. I need you to review the contract from the South America developer. There are some inconsistencies I'd like to discuss. Can you come to my office at 3 o'clock? Laura's heart sank. A meeting in his office, alone. Yes, Mr. Anderson. I'll be there at 3 sharp. He nodded and moved on, but not before Laura caught the ghost of a smile on his lips. Wow, Jessica whispered when he left. The boss never requests a one-on-one meeting with an assistant. He usually sends an email or talks to the coordinator. You must have done something really good or really bad. Laura forced a smile and returned to work, but her hands trembled over the keyboard. The hours until 3 dragged on like molasses. She couldn't concentrate, typing and deleting the same sentences repeatedly. She ate her lunch without tasting it, rice, beans, a piece of sautéed chicken. At 2:45, she went to the bathroom to check her reflection in the mirror, fixing her hair into a bun, applying another layer of lipstick. At 3 o'clock sharp, she knocked on David's office door. "Come in!" The office was exactly as she imagined. Spacious, with a whole glass wall offering a view of Fifth Avenue, an imposing dark wood desk, shelves filled with books and files. The air conditioning kept the temperature pleasant, and there was a subtle scent of leather and paper. David was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the movement below. "Close the door, please." Laura obeyed, the click of the lock sounding too loud in the silence. She stood still, waiting, her fingers tightening around the folder she had brought. David turned around. He just looked at her for long seconds, and Laura saw something in his face that alarmed her. Concern, tension. "Something happened," he said bluntly. "Something we need to discuss." Laura's stomach churned. "What?" "I discovered during a routine audit yesterday afternoon." He walked to the desk, picked up a folder. 3 months ago, there was an error in the payroll system. You received a performance bonus that wasn't yours. $2,800 that were mistakenly credited. Laura felt her blood run cold. $2,800. She remembered. At the time, she thought it was strange, checked 3 times, but HR confirmed it was a semi-annual bonus. She used the money to pay overdue bills, buy new school shoes for Emily, and make an emergency repair on the stove. "I didn't know it was a mistake," she said, her voice coming out thin. "Mr. Anderson, I swear I thought—" "I know you didn't know," he interrupted her, "because you're paying it back. In installments of $200 a month, for 3 months. He opened the folder showing the deposit receipts. "You discovered the mistake, didn't tell anyone, and are paying it back by taking from your own mouth and your daughter's. Why?" Laura lifted her chin, her wounded dignity burning in her chest. "Because it wasn't mine, because it would be stealing to keep it." "But it was the company's mistake, Laura. It wasn't your responsibility to fix it." "It was." She stepped forward, completely forgetting she was speaking to her boss. "It was my responsibility because I have a conscience, because I look my daughter in the eyes every day and tell her that honesty matters, that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard. How could I do that if I kept money that isn't mine?" The silence that followed was thick. David looked at her as if he was seeing her for the first time, and when he finally spoke, there was raw emotion in his voice. "You're paying back $200 every month from a salary of $1,400. That means you're living on $1,200. How do you make that work?" "It's none of your business." "It is." He walked around the desk, getting closer. "It's my business because you're struggling because of a mistake that was ours, not yours." "I'm not struggling," Laura lied. "I'm just being responsible. You're patching your clothes, your shoes have the soles glued on, you eat leftovers because you can't afford food out. Laura, I see. I always see. So you know I survive. I've always survived." She was dangerously close to tears. "And I will keep surviving. I don't need pity." "It's not pity!" His voice came out louder than he intended, and he took a deep breath to regain control. "It's admiration. It's respect. It's—" He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You're the most honorable person I've ever met. And it's killing me to see you struggle like this when I could. When you could what? Give me money? Promote me? Turn me into the employee who sleeps with the boss and gets favors?" Laura hissed. "That would destroy everything I've built with my own hands." "Then tell me what to do!" David's frustration exploded. "Tell me how I can watch you every day, knowing how hard you work, how unfair it is, and do nothing." "You don't do anything because there's nothing to do," Laura said, tears finally streaming down her face. "Because this," she gestured between them, is impossible. Because even if I wanted to, even if you wanted to, the worlds don't fit together. And the longer we insist on this, the more painful it will be when it ends. And what if I don't want it to end? The question hung in the air between them. Laura wiped her tears with the back of her hand, trying to regain her composure. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what I want. What matters is what's possible. And this isn't. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. She stopped. The company will refund the installments you paid. All of them. And they won't charge the remainder. It's the company's mistake, their responsibility. Sarah looked over her shoulder. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's justice. His green eyes burned with determination. And I'm not asking for your permission. I've already given the orders to finance. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across the room, which felt simultaneously huge and tiny. Sarah saw frustration, desire, something deeper in him that frightened her, and she knew he saw the same in her. Thank you, she finally said softly. For the justice, Sarah. I need to get back to work. People will start asking why I'm here for so long. She left before he could say anything else, before she herself did something insane, like cross that room and kiss him, until she forgot all the reasons she shouldn't. When she returned to her desk, her hands were still trembling. Jessica looked at her with barely concealed curiosity. So, was it serious? Just a documentation error, already resolved. But as she typed for the rest of the afternoon, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about one thing. David Anderson was falling for her. And, worse, she was falling for him. And there was absolutely nothing they could do about it without destroying everything. The summer festival at Anderson & Partners was a tradition dating back to the time of the late founder of the company, David's grandfather. Every second Saturday in June, the company parking lot transformed into a full-fledged fair. Colourful banners crisscrossing the space from side to side, stalls of typical foods, a carefully controlled bonfire in the centre, and country music coming from strategically placed speakers. It was the only event of the year where corporate hierarchy temporarily dissolved, where CEOs and assistants ate popcorn from the same stall and danced together. Sarah had never been. In previous years, she always found excuses. Emily was sick, she had family commitments, she needed to work extra. The truth was that corporate parties made her uncomfortable. Seeing the executives' wives in their expensive dresses and sparkling jewelry, hearing conversations about international trips and exorbitantly priced private schools, feeling the invisible yet undeniable weight of class difference. It was more than she could gracefully endure. But this year was different. This year, Jessica insisted so much that Sarah finally caved. And if she were honest with herself, there was another reason, the possibility of seeing David outside the formal office environment, observing him interact with people in a different context, perhaps even exchanging a few words without the suffocating weight of corporate walls around them. You have to go, Jessica had pleaded the Thursday before, and bring your daughter. There are toys for kids, fishing games, those things. It will be fun. So there was Sarah, on a June Saturday that had started sunny but now threatened to turn into the typical cold of the month, wearing patched jeans. The patch, so carefully done it almost looked intentional, and a red plaid shirt she bought on sale 3 years ago. Emily was by her side, practically vibrating with excitement in her little country dress. A simple design that Sarah had sewn herself, using a fabric she found for $5 a yard on 25th Street. "Mommy, look, there's popcorn, and there's that thing spinning with apples." Emily tugged at Sarah's hand, pointing to the candy apple stall. "It's a candy apple, sweetheart, and calm down. We'll see everything in time. The parking lot was packed. Sarah recognized faces from the office. Some greeted her with cordial waves, others barely noticed her presence. She stayed at the edges of the festival, near the spiced cider stall, though she couldn't buy any. Each cup cost $8. Watching. There was a bonfire in the center where some people were roasting corn, and further back, a small makeshift stage where the square dance would soon begin. And then she saw him. David was near one of the stalls, talking to a group of directors, holding a cup of spiced cider. He was wearing jeans. Sarah had never seen him in jeans, and a blue plaid shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He was laughing at something someone had said, and the sight of him so normal, so accessible, made Sarah's heart skip a beat. As if sensing her gaze, David turned his head. His eyes met Sarah's across the crowd, and she saw the exact moment his expression changed. The social smile transformed into something more genuine, warmer. He said something to the group and started walking in her direction. "No, no, no," Sarah whispered to herself. "Too many people watching, too risky." But then Emily shouted, "Look, Mummy, it's the guy from the park." Sarah's stomach dropped. She had completely forgotten about that casual encounter in Central Park 2 weeks ago when they bumped into each other. Intentionally, Sarah suspected. And David played with Emily for 5 minutes, pushing her on the swing and pretending he couldn't catch her in hide and seek. David was already close enough to hear. He knelt down to Emily's height, that devastating smile lighting up his face. "Hi, I remember you. The swing champion." Emily giggled, hiding her face in Sarah's shoulder, but clearly delighted by the attention. "I'm not a champion, but I can go really high. That's practically the same thing." David stood up, finally looking at Sarah. His voice became more formal, aware of the people around. "Miss Johnson, I'm glad you decided to come this year, and you brought esteemed company. Mr. Anderson." Sarah kept her tone polite, but her eyes said something else. Caution. They're watching. He understood. Of course, he understood. "Enjoy the festival. The food is excellent this year." He stepped away, but not before whispering quickly enough for anyone to hear. Laura heard, "You look beautiful." The next 2 hours were a kind of sweet torture. Laura took Emily to each booth, let the girl fish for plastic ducks, bought a bag of popcorn that cost $4 but was worth every penny when she saw her daughter's smile. And all the while, she felt David. She sensed when he was nearby, even without looking, felt when he watched from afar, felt the electric tension that seemed to exist only between the two of them while the rest of the world remained oblivious. When they announced the square dance, Emily was ecstatic. "Mommy, can we dance? Please, please." Laura hesitated. Square dancing meant being the center of attention, meant being seen. But how could she deny something so simple, so innocent to her daughter? "Okay, but you'll have to teach me, because I don't know the steps very well." "I learned at school. I'll teach you." They positioned themselves with other pairs, mostly parents with children, some couples. The music started, that cheerful rhythm of traditional folk dance. The caller shouted the commands, "Greet your partner! Swing! Look out for the snake! It's a lie!" Emily laughed so much that she could barely follow the steps. She stepped on Laura's foot twice, got confused, in the tunnel, and ended up going the wrong way, but she was radiant with happiness. And Laura, watching that little face lit up with pure joy, felt tears burning in her eyes. When was the last time she managed to give something like that to her daughter? A simple moment of carefree fun, without bills haunting the back of her mind, without worries about money or work. From the corner of her eye, she saw David. He was at the side of the makeshift dance area, leaning against a support column of the tent, just watching, the expression on. His face was something Laura couldn't fully name, but it made her chest tighten. There was tenderness there. There was desire. There was something deeper and more frightening. When the music ended and everyone applauded, Emily hugged Laura tightly. "It was the best day, Mommy, the best." "I'm glad, sweetheart, so glad." "Can I have a candy apple now?" "Please." Laura mentally calculated. She had brought $40 for the festival, a luxury she managed after the company reimbursed those expenses. She had already spent $4 on popcorn, $3 on the duck pond. The candy apple cost $8. That would leave $25, which needed to last until payday next Friday. It was tight, but sure, let's go. In line at the candy booth, Emily chattered non-stop about the square dance, how fun it had been, how she wanted to do it again. Laura smiled and nodded, but her mind was partially elsewhere, still processing that look from David. "Excuse me." The voice behind her made Laura turn around. It was David, but he wasn't alone. A woman was beside him, tall, elegant, wearing a clearly designer summer festival dress. Laura recognized the cut, the quality fabric, a blonde hair perfectly styled in braids, flawless makeup. She smiled with that polished cordiality of someone born with a silver spoon. "Miss Mendez," David said, his voice carefully neutral. "I would like to introduce my mother, Beatrice Anderson. Mum, this is Laura Mendez, one of our best administrative assistants." Laura's world stopped for a second. His mother, the formidable vice president of the company, the matriarch of the Anderson family, the woman about whom legends circulated in the office hallways. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Anderson." Laura extended her hand, hyper-aware of her unpolished nails, the rough skin of someone who washes dishes without gloves. Beatrice shook her hand briefly, her eyes as green as her son's, assessing Laura in 2 seconds. "The pleasure is mine. David told me you did an exceptional job on the North America contract." David talked about me to his mother. "Thank you, ma'am. It was a challenging but rewarding project." "And is this your daughter?" Beatrice looked at Emily, who was hiding behind Laura's legs. "Yes, Emily, say hi to Mrs. Anderson." "Hi," Emily whispered, suddenly shy. "She's beautiful." Beatrice smiled, but there was something calculated in that smile. "You're lucky to have such a dedicated mother." The comment sounded innocent, but Laura felt the sharp blade beneath. Single mother, alone, struggling, all those unspoken words but clearly communicated. "I'm lucky to have her," Laura replied calmly, placing a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. An awkward silence settled. David stared fixedly at an undefined point, his jaw tense. Beatrice maintained that polite smile, and Laura wanted to be anywhere but there. "Well," Beatrice finally said, "I won't take up any more of your time. Enjoy the festival." She stepped away, but not before touching her son's arm, a subtle gesture that clearly said, "We'll talk later." David hesitated, looked at Laura with an expression that apologized, and then followed his mother. Laura felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. She automatically bought the candy apple for Emily, found a more secluded corner where they sat in plastic chairs, and watched her daughter eat while her own mind spun in vicious circles she knows, or suspects, or is testing. "Mommy, aren't you going to eat anything?" "I'm not hungry, sweetheart." "But you always say I have to eat." "I know, Mommy is just tired." Emily bit into the candy apple thoughtful. Then, with that devastating sincerity that only children possess, she said, "That lady didn't like us." Laura felt her heart tighten. "Why do you say that?" She smiled, but her eyes didn't smile too. Just like the teacher when she's mad, but people are watching. Children see too much, understand too much. Sometimes people are like that, Emily. It doesn't mean anything about us. But it did mean something. Laura knew it meant something. Half an hour later, when Emily was playing under Jessica's supervision in the area of... As children played games, Sarah stepped away to get some fresh air away from the crowd. She walked to the farthest part of the parking lot, where the bunting ended and the darkness of June night began. She was about to call Jessica and say she was leaving when she heard footsteps behind her. Sarah. It was David, of course. She didn't turn around. You shouldn't be here. Someone might see. I don't care. He positioned himself next to her, looking out at the city that stretched beyond the parking lot. The lights of New York twinkled in the distance, millions of lives being lived, millions of stories unfolding. I'm sorry about my mother. She didn't do anything wrong. She was polite. Sarah, what do you want from me, David? She finally faced him, and there was pain in her voice. Really? What do you want? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I want everything. I want to be able to see you without hiding. I want to truly know your daughter, not in casual meetups in parks. I want to take both of you out to dinner without worrying about who will see us. I want. Sarah shook her head. But you, Sarah, can't have it. That's the truth you don't want to accept. Why can't I? Because your mother sized me up and found me lacking in 30 seconds. The words came out louder than Sarah intended. She took a deep breath, controlling her volume. Because I'm an administrative assistant with a high school diploma, a single mother, renting in Queens. Because I wear patched clothes to corporate parties, while your mother wears dresses that cost more than my 3 months' rent. Because I don't belong in your world, David, and pretending I do will only hurt more when reality hits. I don't care about those things, but the rest of the world does. Your mother cares. The company board cares. Sarah felt tears burning, but she refused to let them fall. And more importantly, I care. I care about my dignity, about my reputation, about what my daughter will hear when she grows up. I don't want her growing up hearing that her mother is that kind of woman, the one who slept with the boss to get ahead. No one would say that. Of course they would. Sarah laughed humorlessly. You live in a bubble, David. You don't hear what they say in the hallways, in the elevators, in the bathrooms. I hear it. And I've already heard enough about how strange it is that you stopped to say hello to me today. How interesting it is that you met my daughter. People talk. They always talk. David was silent for long seconds. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse. So what are you saying? That it's over before it even began? Sarah closed her eyes. I'm saying that maybe it should end before someone gets really hurt. Before I lose my job, before my daughter pays the price for my selfish decisions. Looking at you isn't selfish. Wanting to be near you isn't selfish. It is when there's a 7-year-old whose stability depends on me keeping this job. It is when there's a clear hierarchy that makes anything between us automatically suspicious. It is when, her voice broke, it is when I'm starting to feel things I shouldn't feel, and that terrifies me. David took a step toward her, but Sarah stepped back. No, not here. Not now. She quickly wiped her eyes. I need to take Emily home. She has school on Monday, and it's already past. Her bedtime. Sarah, please. Thank you for the party. It was... Emily had a lot of fun. Good night, Mr. Anderson. She turned and walked quickly back to where Jessica and Emily were. Her vision was blurred by the tears she finally let fall now that she was away from him, but she didn't look back. She couldn't. If she looked back, she would see his expression, and if she saw his expression, she wouldn't have the strength to do what was right. Mommy! Emily ran to her. I won a little plastic fish. Look! That's lovely, sweetheart, Sarah picked the girl up, even though she was getting too big for it, and hugged her tightly. Shall we go home? But the party isn't over yet. I know, but it's late and you need to sleep, and Mommy is tired. On the way to the bus stop, because Uber would be too expensive, Emily fell asleep in Sarah's arms. The girl was heavy, and Sarah's arms ached, but she didn't complain. She just looked out the bus window, watching New York pass in blurs of light and shadow, and allowed herself to cry silently, because she had fallen in love, completely, irrevocably, in love with David Anderson, and that was the most dangerous and impossible thing she could have done. When they got home, almost midnight, after putting Emily to bed still in her little summer festival dress because the girl was sleeping so deeply that Sarah didn't want to wake her, she sat on the tiny kitchen floor and hugged her knees. Her phone buzzed. A message from David. "I don't give up easily, and I won't give up on you." Sarah typed and deleted 5 different responses before finally writing, "Sometimes giving up is the bravest thing we can do." She didn't wait for a reply. She turned off her phone, went to the room she shared with Emily, and lay down next to her daughter on the twin bed where they slept snugly but together. And for the first time in weeks, instead of happiness, what Sarah felt was fear. Fear of what she was feeling, fear of what she could lose, fear that no matter what she chose, someone would get hurt, and she was terrified that that someone would be Emily. The following Monday, after the summer festival, brought with it a strange atmosphere in the office. Sarah felt the change in the air as soon as she walked through the revolving door of Anderson and Partners. There were looks, whispers, as whispers abruptly ceased as she approached. Enigmatic smiles from colleagues who usually barely acknowledged her existence. She tightened her grip on her bag and headed to the elevator, keeping her head high despite her churning stomach. Jessica was at their table when Sarah arrived, and her colleague's expression confirmed that something was definitely wrong. "Did you hear?" Jessica asked as soon as Sarah sat down, not even waiting for a greeting. "Hear what?" Sarah, empowered on her computer, trying to appear casual while her heart raced. "Ryan is getting promoted to manager of the administrative department." Jessica lowered her voice, leaning over the divider that separated their desks. "And do you know who's going to fill the coordinator position that will be vacant?" Sarah was afraid to ask, but she did anyway. "Who?" "Apparently, HR is evaluating internally, and your name is on the list." Sarah's world tilted slightly. "My name? That doesn't make sense. There are people here who have been around longer, with more experience, but no one with your performance." Jessica shrugged. "I heard Sylvia from HR talking to Patricia that you have the best evaluations in the department over the last 6 months. 0 errors, always on time, that project for North America that was a success." She paused significantly. "But I also heard something else." Sarah felt a weight in her stomach. "What?" "Some people are talking about you and the boss at the party. They said he specifically stopped to talk to you, that he knew your daughter, that he was watching you during the dance." Jessica lowered her voice even further. "Some people are saying that if you get promoted, it will be for non-professional reasons." There it was. The exact scenario Sarah feared. The exact reason she had tried to distance herself from David. And now it was happening, and she hadn't even been promoted yet. "That's ridiculous," Sarah said, but her voice came out less firm than she intended. "He greeted half the people at the party, and my daughter recognized him from a casual encounter in the park. People are seeing things that don't exist." "I know that. You know that. But you know how people are." Jessica touched her arm sympathetically. "I'm just warning you, in case you hear something or in case they offer you the promotion, you'll be prepared for what comes with it." Sarah spent the rest of the morning with a knot in her stomach, making small mistakes she never made, typing wrong dates, having to reread paragraphs 3 times to understand. At 11 o'clock her phone rang, internal extension. HR. "Sarah Johnson." "Yes." "This is Sylvia from Human Resources. Could you come to my office? We have something to discuss." "Sure, I'll be right there." Jessica made a sympathetic face as Sarah stood up. "Good luck, And remember, you deserve it, regardless of what anyone says. The HR department was on the 11th floor. Sarah took the stairs. The elevator was crowded, and she needed the extra minutes to calm down. When she arrived at Sylvia's office, she knocked on the door with fingers that insisted on trembling. "Come in, Sarah. Have a seat, please." Sylvia was a woman in her mid-40s, with grey hair pulled back in an efficient bun, reading glasses hanging from a chain. She had an open folder on the desk. "I'll get straight to the point because I know you have work waiting. We are evaluating internal candidates for the administrative coordinator position that will be vacant with Ryan's promotion." Sarah nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. "Your performance over the last 8 months has been exceptional. 0 errors, always on time, and that work you did on the North America project impressed several people, including the board." Sylvia took off her glasses, cleaning them with a tissue. "Normally, for a promotion of this level, we would require a college degree. You don't have a completed degree, correct?" "Correct. I completed 3 semesters of business administration, but I had to drop out when I got pregnant. I never managed to go back." "I understand. Well, given the exceptional circumstances of your performance, the company is willing to make an exception, but there are conditions." Sylvia put her glasses back on. "You would have to commit to resuming your studies. We can offer partial scholarships at an accredited college, and there would be a 6-month probation period in the new role before finalization." Sarah felt a mix of excitement and dread. Coordinator. Better salary. Probably around 2,500, maybe even 3,000. Enough to rent an apartment. Just for her and Emily, to buy new clothes when necessary, to have a small emergency fund. It was everything she had worked for. But, "Can I ask one thing?" Sarah said slowly. "Was this promotion based purely on merit? Or," she hesitated, choosing her words carefully, "or was there some external influence?" Sylvia frowned. "External how?" "Like a specific recommendation from someone on the board." The silence that followed was eloquent. Sylvia sighed, closing the folder. "Sarah, I'm going to be honest with you because I think you deserve that. Yes, there was a recommendation, but not in the way you're thinking." "What do you mean?" "Mr. Anderson requested a complete audit of all performance evaluation processes over the last 2 years. He wanted total transparency to ensure that promotions and raises were being given based on real merit, not favoritism or other issues." Sylvia opened the folder again, showing spreadsheets with data. "When we conducted this audit, your name stood out. The best performance metrics, consistently. The recommendation came from the data, Sarah, not from a specific person." Sarah processed this. David had conducted an audit. He had created a system to prove that any recognition she received would be based on objective numbers, not personal relationships. He was trying to protect her, or protect them both. "And do people know about this? About the audit?" "It was communicated in a general memo on Friday. All managers and coordinators received it." Sylvia tilted her head, studying Sarah. "Why all this concern? You should be happy." "I am. It's just that—" Sarah took a deep breath. "I heard some comments about how some people think any promotion I get would be for non-professional reasons, and I don't want my work to be questioned that way." "Ah!" Sylvia leaned back in her chair, understanding crossing her face. "I get it. And between you and me, there will always be people talking, Sarah. Always. You're a woman, you're young, you're attractive. If you were promoted, some would say it was because of your looks. If you weren't promoted despite excellent performance, others would say it was discrimination. You can't control what people think. You can only control your own work and your own ethics. I know, but that doesn't make it easier." "It doesn't," Sylvia agreed. "So what do you say? Do you want to accept the position?" Sarah looked At her hands in her lap, at her short, clean nails, at the slightly rough skin of her palms. She thought of Emily, the dreams she had for her daughter. She thought of having her own apartment, the possibility of finishing college, the financial security she had never had. She thought of everything she had worked for since she was 15. And she thought of David, how he had structured an entire audit to protect her professional integrity, how he understood even without her asking that she needed this to be undeniably deserved. "I accept," she finally said, "with one condition." "What?" "I want the audit numbers to be available to anyone who questions it. I want total transparency. If someone comes to question me, I want to be able to show concrete data." Sylvia smiled, a genuine and approving smile. "That can be arranged. Welcome to the coordination, Sarah. You start next Monday. Ryan will transition with you this week." When Sarah returned to her desk, her legs were shaking. Jessica raised her eyebrows in silent inquiry, and Sarah nodded discreetly. Jessica's expression lit up, but before she could speak, Sarah subtly shook her head. "Later. We'll talk later." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Sarah was called to several transition meetings with Ryan, learned about the new responsibilities she would take on, received system passwords she had never had access to before. It was equally exciting and terrifying. And through all of this, she didn't see David even once. He didn't pass by the hallway, didn't show up in any meetings. He was simply absent. This was good, Sarah told herself. It was exactly what she needed. Distance. Professionalism, nothing that could fuel the gossip that was already starting. But when it was time to leave at 5:30, and Sarah was grabbing her bag, Jessica nudged her. "Look." Sarah followed her colleague's gaze to the hallway. David was coming out of the elevator, accompanied by two men in suits, whom Sarah vaguely recognized as board members. He looked serious, absorbed in conversation, carrying a bulky folder. He walked straight past the administrative area without looking to the side. But then, at the last second before turning the corner, his eyes met Sarah's. For a fraction of a second, she saw something on his face, pride, concern, something too deep to name in such a brief glance. And then he was gone. "He didn't talk to you about the promotion?" Jessica asked quietly. "No. And it's better that way." Sarah shut down her computer. It has to be that way. That night, after putting Emily to bed, the girl had insisted on hearing the story of how Mommy got promoted 3 times, even not fully understanding what it meant. Sarah sat in the tiny kitchen with a cup of tea and her phone. There was a message from David, sent 2 hours earlier. "Congratulations on the promotion. It was based purely on merit. The numbers prove it. Anyone who questions it can see the full audit. You deserve this and much more." Sarah held the phone for long minutes, reading and rereading the message. Finally she typed, "Thank you for everything, for the fairness, for the transparency. You didn't have to do this." The reply came almost immediately. "I had to. Because I can't let anyone question something you earned on your own. Because you deserve to be recognized for who you are. Exceptional." Sarah felt tears burning. She typed and deleted several responses before finally writing, "This makes everything more complicated. You know that." "I know, but it also makes it possible. Now we're in different departments. There's no longer a direct hierarchical relationship. The rules have changed." Sarah processed this. He was technically right. As a coordinator, she would report to the administrative manager, not directly to the CEO. There were layers between them now, but it was still complicated, still risky, still... Her phone vibrated again. "I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying that things don't have to be as impossible as they seemed. We can take it slow, we can be careful, but we can try." Sarah looked. Around the tiny kitchen, The old stove, with only 3 working burners, the refrigerator that made strange noises at night, the cabinet with a loose door she fixed with tape. She looked at the bedroom door where Emily was sleeping, her greatest treasure and biggest responsibility. And she thought of David, how he had changed corporate structures just to protect her integrity. How he saw her, really saw her, not as the administrative assistant or the single mother or the poor woman, but as Sarah, whole and valuable in her own right. "Slowly," she typed, "and only if it doesn't jeopardize Emily's stability. She comes first, always. I wouldn't expect anything different. It's one of the things I admire most about you." Sarah turned off her phone before he could send anything else. She took the now cold tea, washed the cup, checked the locked doors. She lay down beside her daughter on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to Emily's soft breathing, thinking about choices and consequences, and the terrifying feeling of hope that stubbornly bloomed in her chest. On Thursday of that week, during a particularly tedious transition meeting about filing protocols, the Sarah's phone vibrated with a message. She glanced discreetly while Ryan spoke about backup systems. It was from an unknown number, but the message was unmistakable. "I know what's happening between you and my son. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Café de Flore. Come alone. Beatrice Anderson." Sarah's blood ran cold. Her first reaction was pure panic. The second was anger. Anger that David had told her. Anger that she was being summoned as if she were a child called to the principal's office. The third reaction, which settled like a weight in her stomach, was fear, because Beatrice Anderson was not just a powerful woman. She was the woman who controlled 40% of the company's shares, the woman who could make Sarah's life a living hell with a simple phone call, the woman whose son, Sarah, was risking everything to get to know better. "I'll be there," she replied, because what other choice did she have? She spent the night awake, mentally rehearsing conversations. How would she explain? How would she defend something she barely understood herself? How would she convince that woman that she wasn't after her son's money when she could barely convince herself that she had the right to be in his life? Friday arrived heavy and grey, threatening rain. Sarah asked for 2 hours off to take care of something personal. One of the perks of her new position was having some flexibility. She wore her best outfit, black dress pants she bought on sale, and a crisp white button-up shirt. She styled her hair in an elegant bun. She applied lipstick. She looked at herself in the mirror and tried to see what Beatrice Anderson would see, a young woman, attractive enough, clearly from a lower class, clearly a threat to the plans she likely had for her son. Café de Flore was the kind of place Sarah would never enter voluntarily. Marble tables, upholstered chairs, a menu with prices that made her stomach churn. Beatrice was already there, sitting at a discreet table in the back, wearing a beige linen suit that probably cost more than Sarah's 6-month rent. "Miss Johnson, thank you for coming." Beatrice gestured to the opposite chair. There was no smile now, no false cordiality. "Mrs. Anderson." Sarah sat up straight, hands in her lap. She wasn't going to show fear, even though she was terrified. "I'll get straight to the point because I imagine your time is precious." Beatrice took a sip of coffee that probably cost $15. "My son is obsessed with you. I don't know how this started. I don't know exactly how far it has progressed, but I know enough to be concerned." Sarah waited, giving nothing away. "You seem intelligent," Beatrice continued, "so I'll credit you with the intelligence to understand the situation. David is the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. He carries a surname that comes with responsibilities, expectations, obligations. The woman who eventually stands by his side will need to navigate worlds that," she paused delicately, "that require certain preparation, certain education, certain suitability. And I'm not suitable," Sarah completed, her voice calm despite the growing fury. "Those aren't my words." "But it's what you mean." Sarah leaned slightly forward. "Let me guess. You already have some candidates in mind, women with important surnames, with degrees from expensive universities, who know which fork to use at formal dinners and how to make small talk with other wealthy people." "Women who won't ruin his reputation," Beatrice corrected firmly. "Do you think I haven't heard the gossip? That I don't know what people are saying about your promotion? You can be as competent as you want, but there will always be those who will question. There will always be the suspicion that you slept with the boss. And if David insists on a public relationship with you, it won't just tarnish his reputation, it will destroy yours. Maybe I don't care, but you should." Beatrice placed her cup on the table with precision. "You have a daughter, a beautiful girl, who will one day grow up and hear the things they'll say about her mother, who will read on gossip websites about how her mother seduced a wealthy CEO. Do you really want that for her?" The blow was precise, hitting exactly where Sarah was most vulnerable. Her hands clenched the fabric of her pants under the table, trying to maintain composure. "I came here prepared not to like you," Sarah said slowly. "Prepared for you to offer me money to walk away, or threaten me with termination, or any other cliché from a soap opera. But you're smarter than that, aren't you? You attack where it really hurts." "I'm not attacking. I'm being realistic." Beatrice sighed, and for a moment she seemed genuinely tired. "Look, I don't know you. Maybe you're wonderful. Maybe you're everything my son thinks you are. But that doesn't change the reality of the world we live in. A world that will judge you, that will judge him, and that will, yes, eventually judge your daughter. So what do you want from me? That I end it before it starts? That I disappear from his life?" Beatrice fell silent for long seconds, studying Sarah with those green eyes so similar to her son's. "I want you to think, really think, not with your heart, but with your head. Think if what you can offer him is worth what he will lose. Think if what he can offer you is worth what you will lose. And think, above all, about what is best for that little girl sleeping in the apartment in Queens." She stood up, leaving money on the table, much more than the bill. "The coffee is on me. Think about what I said, Sarah. Not as a threat, but as advice from a mother who knows this world better than you." And then she was gone, leaving Sarah sitting alone in that expensive cafe, the poisoned words echoing in her mind and tears finally streaming down her face that she could no longer hold back. The cruelest part was, Beatrice Anderson was not completely wrong. Sarah did not tell David about the meeting with Beatrice throughout the following week while she officially assumed the position of administrative coordinator, with her own desk in a more private corner, access to more complex systems, and management meetings that made her feel simultaneously proud and like an imposter. She carried that conversation like a weight on her chest. Beatrice's words echoed in her mind at the most inconvenient moments, during presentations, while training the new assistant who would take over her former duties, when she woke up at 3 in the morning with Emily curled up next to her. Think of what's best for that girl, sleeping in the apartment in Queens. David was trying to reach out. Discreet messages asking how she was adapting to the new role, if she was managing the new responsibilities, if they could meet to talk. Sarah always responded politely, always professionally, always with valid excuses. She was busy. With the transition, Emily had a doctor's appointment. She needed to study for the college entrance exam that the company offered a scholarship for. They weren't complete lies. She was busy. Emily had a checkup with the pediatrician. Routine, nothing serious, but it still consumed an entire afternoon between a crowded clinic and endless waiting. And she was studying to resume college, using the few free minutes she had to review math and English that she had forgotten in the years since she had paused her studies. But they were excuses nonetheless, barriers she built between them, bricks of protection constructed word by word, absence by absence. It was Jessica who finally confronted her, one Thursday afternoon, almost 3 weeks after that conversation in the cafe. "What happened?" she asked bluntly, appearing in Sarah's new office with 2 cups of coffee from the machine. "You're different, more closed off, and don't tell me it's just the stress of the new position, because I've known you long enough to know when something's wrong." Sarah looked at her friend, the only person in the office who truly cared, who treated her as an equal from day one, who never asked invasive questions but was always available, and she felt the tension of the past weeks threatening to crumble. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted softly, checking to see if the door was closed. The promotion, the studies, raising Emily, and still... She paused, unable to complete her thought. "And still dealing with whatever is going on with the boss," Jessica gently completed. Sarah stared at her, panic rising. "How did you—" "Dear, I have eyes, and I have 38 years of experience reading situations." Jessica sat down in the chair in front of Sarah's desk. "It's not obvious to everyone. Most people don't notice because they're too busy with their own lives. But I notice how tense you get when he walks by, how he finds excuses to come to this floor when he never did before, how you both carefully avoid looking at each other in a way that's more revealing than if you did." "Nothing happened," Sarah said quickly. "Nothing really physical or... We didn't." "I know. It's clear you're both terrified of crossing any line." Jessica took a sip of the bad coffee. "But feelings don't have to be physical to be real. And they don't have to be consummated to be complicated." Sarah covered her face with her hands. "His mother called me to talk 3 weeks ago, and she wasn't mean, you know? She didn't threaten me, didn't offer money. It was worse. She was rational. She pointed out all the things I was already thinking but trying to ignore." "Like what?" "Like the fact that people will always question. They will always think I slept with him to get the promotion, no matter how many numbers prove otherwise. How our worlds don't mix, and trying to force it will hurt both." Sarah let her hands drop, looking at Jessica with tear-filled eyes. "And how Emily will grow up hearing things about her mother that a child should never hear. That part destroyed me." Jessica was silent for long seconds, just watching Sarah with a thoughtful expression. "Can I say a truth you might not want to hear?" "Go ahead." "His mother isn't completely wrong, but she isn't completely right either." Jessica leaned forward. "It's true that people will talk. They always do. But you know what? They're already talking. I hear it in the hallways, in the elevator, in the bathroom. And you know what they say? Half think you slept with him. The other half defends that you're too competent and that finally someone in management sees real talent. That doesn't help. Let me finish. The point is, you can't control what people think. You never could, and you never will. If you stay with him, they'll talk. If you don't stay with him, they'll say you were too smart to get burned or that he used you and tossed you aside." Jessica shrugged. "The question isn't what will people think. The question is, what do you want? What makes you happy? And is this good for your daughter?" "I don't know if I know the answer." "Then find out. But don't let the fear of other people's judgment be the only thing deciding for you. You've been through too much in life to let gossip stop you from being happy." That night, after putting Emily to bed, the girl was excited because they had finally managed to rent an apartment just for them in Queens, a little bigger, with 2 tiny but separate bedrooms. Thanks to the salary increase from the promotion, Sarah sat on the floor of the empty living room of the new apartment. They still had no furniture other than the beds they brought from the old place. Stacked boxes waited to be unpacked. It smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. Her phone rang. David. She hesitated for 5 rings before answering. "Hi?" "Hi." His voice sounded tired, relieved. "I thought you weren't going to answer." "I almost didn't." "Sarah, what's going on? It's been 3 weeks since you've barely spoken to me. I know we can't be obvious at work, I get that, but you're avoiding me even outside of it. Did I do something wrong?" Sarah closed her eyes, resting her head against the unpainted wall. "No, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just that your mother called me to talk 3 weeks ago." The silence on the other end was heavy. When David spoke again, there was controlled tension in his voice. "What did my mother do?" "She called me at a cafe. She was polite, she was strategic. She didn't threaten me, she just made me think about things I was already thinking." "What things?" "About how this might not work, about how I will always be seen as the employee who slept with the boss, about how Emily will grow up hearing that." Her voice broke. "About how I'm not suitable for your world and never will be." "Fuck my world." The anger in his voice was raw, unfiltered. "Sorry for the swear, but seriously, fuck all of this. My mother had no right to call you, no right to put those things in your head." But she was right. No, she was scared, which is different. Sarah heard him take a deep breath, controlling himself. "Look, I understand her fears. I grew up in this world. I know how it works. I know there are unspoken rules about who people like me should be with. But I've also seen what those rules did to my father. A cold marriage, an empty life, no real joy. I refuse to repeat that. But what if your mother is right about Emily? What if she grows up hearing horrible things about me? Then we'll teach her that the opinions of strangers don't define who she is. We'll teach her that courage is doing what's right even when it's hard. He paused, and when he continued, his voice was softer. "Sarah, can I come over? Where are you? We need to talk for real, not over the phone." "I'm at the new apartment, but there are no furniture yet, just boxes and I don't care. Send me the address." Sarah should have said no. It was late, it was inappropriate, it was risky, but she was tired of being afraid, tired of avoiding, tired of carrying everything alone. 847 Daisy Street, apartment 23. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. It was 18 minutes. Sarah heard the doorbell and checked through the peephole before opening. David was there, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, hair messy as if he had run his hands through it dozens of times, expression tense but determined. "Hi," he said when she opened the door. "Hi. Come in. Sorry for the mess. We just moved and—" "Sarah." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Stop apologizing, please." They stood there, in the tiny hallway of the simple apartment, just looking at each other. Sarah suddenly hyper-aware that she was wearing an old sweatshirt and pajama pants, that she was barefoot, that the apartment smelled of paint and cardboard. "Coffee. I brought a kettle in the move. I can make it on the stove because the coffee maker is still in some box." "I didn't come here for coffee." David took a step toward her. "I came because you've been avoiding me for 3 weeks and I'm going crazy. I came because my mother had no right to do what she did. I came because—" He ran a hand through his hair. "Because I can't stop thinking about you. And that was true before, but now it's worse because now I know you feel it too. But you're forcing yourself to fight against it." "Of course I'm fighting against it. This is insane, David. You are—" She gestured vaguely. "You are you, and I am me. And there are a million reasons why this can't work. Give me one good reason, not just people will talk or we're from different worlds. Give me a real reason why we shouldn't at least try." Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Because when she filtered through all the fears, all the practical concerns, all the outside voices, Beatrice's, her colleagues, her own insecurity, what remained was alarmingly simple. She wanted to try. Despite everything, against all logic, she wanted to see where this could lead. "I'm scared," she finally whispered. "I'm scared of getting hurt. I'm scared of hurting you. I'm even more scared that Emily will get hurt." "I'm scared too." David took another step, now close enough for Sarah to feel his warmth. "I'm scared of ruining everything, of not being enough for you, of not being able to give you what you deserve. But do you know what my biggest fear is?" "What?" "It's looking back 10 years from now and regretting not being brave enough to try. It's asking, what if forever?" Sarah felt warm tears streaming down. "Your mother said I'm not suitable for your world. Then fuck my world. We'll build a new one that makes sense for both of us." He raised his hesitant hand as if to touch her face, but unsure if he had permission. "Can I?" Sarah nodded, unable to speak. His fingers touched her face with a tenderness that made her tremble, thumbs wiping away tears, warm palms against her skin. It was the first real touch between them, the first moment of true intimacy, and Sarah felt every nerve ending in her body ignite. "I don't want the world my mother thinks I should have," David said softly, his face inches from hers. "I want to wake up with someone who challenges me, who makes me better, who doesn't let me hide behind. I want someone real. I want you." "David," her voice came out shaky, "this is going to be so hard." "I know, but the best things always are." He leaned in slowly, giving her all the time in the world to pull back if she wanted. But Sarah didn't pull away. Instead, she closed the final distance between them, and when their lips met, it was as if the whole world disappeared for a moment. The kiss started gentle, almost reverent, like two people so afraid of breaking something precious that they hardly dared to touch. But then Sarah sighed against his mouth, and David deepened the kiss, his hands sliding into her hair, and suddenly it was no longer gentle. It was raw need. It was weeks of tension unraveling. It was finally admitting what they both had been denying. When they pulled apart, both were breathing heavily. David rested his forehead against hers, eyes still closed. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Not forever, not yet. But stay with me tonight. Let me hold you. Let's have this before we go back to reality tomorrow." "Emily," Sarah began, but then remembered. "She's sleeping at my sister's house. She wanted to help with the little one during the move, said she'd bring her back tomorrow morning. So you're free until tomorrow. We don't have furniture, just mattresses on the floor and boxes." "Perfect." They sat on the floor of the empty living room, leaning against the wall still, smelling of fresh paint, and talked about everything, about David's childhood of privilege but emotional emptiness, about Sarah's youth of struggles but unconditional love, about the dreams he had of making the company more humane, fairer, more conscious, about the dreams she had of giving Emily everything she herself never had, education, stability, the certainty that she was loved and valued. At 2 a.m, they ordered pizza because neither had eaten dinner. The delivery guy climbed the stairs with the box, accepted David's payment, "Let me at least do this," and they ate sitting on the floor, using boxes as a table, laughing at silly jokes and sharing stories. "First time I've eaten pizza on the floor," David commented, grabbing a third slice. "Welcome to my world, rich CEO. Your world is better than mine." Sarah looked around, at the empty apartment, at the stacked boxes, at the absence of any luxury. "Really?" "Completely." He looked at her with a serious expression. "In my world, people do things because it's expected. In this one, you do it because you choose. In this one, pizza on the floor at 2 a.m. is an adventure, not an inconvenience. In this one you are real, and I prefer real any day." Around 3, they lay side by side on Sarah's mattress, the only place with something soft to sit on, still dressed, just holding hands in the dark. Emily usually slept in the next room, but tonight she was out, and the apartment had a silence that Sarah rarely experienced. "About my mum," David said in the dark. "I'm going to talk to her. I'll make it clear that she had no right to confront you, that she can't do that again." "Don't create a problem with her because of me. It's not because of you, it's for us. She needs to understand that I'm not my father. I won't accept an arranged or convenient marriage. I'll fight for what I want, and I want you. It's still going to be hard. I know, but we'll do it together, one day at a time, one problem at a time." He squeezed her hand in the dark. "You, me, and that amazing little girl in the next room who has the strongest mother I've ever known. I'm afraid I won't be strong enough. You always have been. You just need to allow yourself to believe that." Sarah fell asleep like that, hand intertwined with his, feeling his warmth beside her, feeling for the first time in weeks as if maybe, just maybe, things could work out. When she woke up in the morning, the sun streaming through the window without curtains, David was still there, awake, watching her with such a tender expression that made her heart tighten. "Good morning," he whispered. "Good morning. How long have you been awake?" "An hour, maybe 2. I couldn't stop looking at you." "That's a bit creepy, you know," he chuckled softly. "Sorry, it's just, you snore, it's adorable. I do not snore. You do, just a little. It's cute." Sarah playfully shoved him, and suddenly they were laughing, rolling on the mattress, and then kissing again, and then just holding each other as if they were the most precious things in the world. "I need to go," David eventually said reluctantly. "Your sister is going to bring Emily back soon, and it's probably not the best way for her to meet me formally, finding me here in the morning." "Probably not," Sarah agreed, but didn't let him go immediately. "Dinner next week, me, you and Emily, for real this time, not casual, not hidden. I want to meet her properly. I want her to know me." Are you sure? Involving her makes everything more real, more serious." "I know, and I'm sure." After David left, not without 3 more goodbye kisses and promises to text, Sarah sat in the empty apartment, processing everything. There was a lightness in her chest that she hadn't felt in years, but also a new weight, the responsibility of what they were starting. When her sister brought Emily back, the little girl bounced in, excitedly talking about the movie they watched and the cake they made. "Mommy, you're different," she suddenly said, stopping mid-sentence to study Sarah with those overly observant eyes. "Different how?" "I don't know. Brighter, like that time at the company party." The girl tilted her head. Are you happy?" Sarah pulled her daughter into a tight hug. "I am, sweetheart. I'm happy, and a little scared too. Is it possible to feel both things at the same time?" "I think so. I feel happy and scared when I go to the doctor for a shot, happy that I'm protecting my health, but scared of the needle." Sarah laughed, amazed by the simple wisdom of children. "Exactly like that, little one. Exactly like that." Dinner was set for a Friday in August at a family restaurant in Brooklyn that David specifically chose for being cozy without being ostentatious, the kind of place where a 7-year-old could order chicken nuggets without causing a scene, but that also served decent risotto. Sarah spent the entire week in a mix of excitement and panic, mentally rehearsing how she would explain to Emily who exactly David was and why they were having dinner together. "So, sweetheart," she began on Thursday night as she braided her daughter's hair after a bath, "do you remember the guy from the park and the company party? The guy who pushed me on the swing and who knows you from work?" Emily rolled her eyes with that exaggerated patience that children sometimes have for adults. I remember, Mummy. I'm not a baby. I know you're not, little one. It's just, tomorrow we're having dinner with him, the three of us together, and I wanted to tell you that he is special to me. Emily turned around so quickly that she almost pulled her own hair from Sarah's hands. Like a boyfriend special? Sarah felt her face heat up. Like, we're getting to know each other better special. But yes, something like that. Finally, Emily jumped on the bed, almost knocking Sarah over. I knew it. Every time you talk about him, your face turns as red as a tomato. It does not. It does. And you keep playing with your hair like this. Ugh! The girl mimicked a nervous gesture that Sarah didn't even know she did. And you smile at your phone when he texts, I saw. Sarah didn't know whether to laugh or worry about how observant her daughter was. Okay, so you're not upset or confused? Emily sat up more seriously, her brown eyes thoughtful. It's just that, if he's your boyfriend, is he going to be like my dad? Sarah's heart tightened. That inevitable question, laden with so much weight. No, sweetheart. No one will replace your dad. But David can be a friend. Someone who likes me and I hope will like you too. But only if you want to get to know him better. If you don't want to, we don't have to have this dinner. I want to, Emily said after thinking for a few seconds. He seemed nice. And if he makes you happy, Mommy, then I want to get to know him properly. On Friday, Sarah changed her outfit 3 times before finally choosing a simple dark blue dress she bought on sale at H&M. Nothing extravagant, but it made her feel pretty. Emily insisted on wearing her princess dress, a pink model with tulle that her maternal grandmother had given her for her birthday, saved for special occasions. David picked them up at 7, when Sarah opened the door and saw him standing there wearing jeans, a light blue dress shirt without a tie, and a light jacket, holding a simple bouquet of daisies. Flowers that didn't cost a fortune but were beautiful. She felt her stomach twist with nerves and anticipation. Hi, he said, and there was nervousness in his voice too. You look beautiful. You both look beautiful. Hi. Emily appeared behind Sarah, spinning to show off her dress. I'm a princess today. The most beautiful princess I've ever seen. David agreed seriously, bending down to be at her level. And do princesses like pasta? Because I know a place that makes the best spaghetti in the city. I love spaghetti, but I can't eat without making a mess, so Mummy always gets mad. Today, no one will get mad if there's a mess. I promise. In the car, a discreet model, not the Mercedes that David usually drove, Sarah noticed, Emily chattered non-stop about school, about her new friend she had made, about how she was learning to read difficult words. David listened with genuine attention, asking questions, laughing at the right moments, and Sarah watched from the passenger seat with a heart full of an emotion she couldn't fully name. The restaurant was perfect, not too formal and not too casual, with cozy wooden decor and plants, soft lighting, and a corner with colored pencils and paper for kids. Emily immediately dove into drawing while they waited for their meals, and David sat next to her, helping color a unicorn. You draw well, Emily commented, watching critically as he picked a shade of purple for the unicorn's horn. Do you have kids? The question caught David off guard. Sarah saw him swallow hard before answering. I don't have any, but I've always wanted to. I was just waiting for the right people to come into my life. Like Mommy? Like Mommy, he agreed softly, looking at Sarah with an intensity that made her blush. And like you. But you barely know me. True, but I'd like to get to know you better, if you let me. Emily thought about this for a moment, her tongue peeking out from the corner of her mouth as she colored a star yellow. Are you rich? Emily, Sarah intervened, mortified. Sarah, we don't ask those things. But why not? Everyone in the building says Mommy's boss is very rich, and you're her boss, so—" David laughed, a genuine and relaxed sound. "It's okay. It's a fair question." He turned to Emily. "Yes, I have money. My family has had money for a long time. But you know what I've learned? That having money doesn't make you happy. It just makes you comfortable. True happiness comes from other things." "Like what?" "Like being here tonight with both of you. Like doing something. What's important is having people who like you for who you are, not for what you have." He looked at the drawing. "And how to color unicorns in restaurants." Emily smiled, clearly pleased with the response. The dishes arrived. Spaghetti carbonara for Emily, mushroom risotto for David, and a filet mignon with mushroom sauce for Sarah, which she normally wouldn't order due to the price. But David insisted when he saw her eyeing it on the menu. The conversation flowed surprisingly well. David asked about Emily's classes, what she liked to do, and her favorite cartoons. He didn't talk to her as if she were a silly child. He treated her like a real person with valid opinions and thoughts, and Emily, usually shy around strangers, blossomed under the attention. "You know what's cool?" Emily said in the middle of dinner, a bit of tomato sauce at the corner of her mouth. "You make Mom really laugh. Not that polite laugh she gives when she's tired, the real laugh from her eyes." David looked at Sarah, that half smile she was starting to love curving his lips. "Your mom has the most beautiful laugh I've ever heard." "Are you going to stop talking about me as if I'm not here?" Sarah protested, but she was smiling. After dinner, when David suggested ice cream at a nearby ice cream shop, Emily practically jumped for joy. They walked through the illuminated streets of Brooklyn, the girl between the two, holding both their hands and hopping over the cracks in the sidewalk. "Don't step on the crack or you'll break your mum's foot," she sang, an old nursery rhyme that Sarah didn't know where she had learned. "Then I'll be very careful," David said seriously, also exaggeratedly avoiding the cracks, making Emily laugh. At the ice cream shop, Emily ordered 3 scoops, chocolate, strawberry and vanilla, and managed to finish them all, despite Sarah's doubts. David chose pistachio, Sarah opted for lemon, and they shared bites of each other's while sitting on the high stools outside. "David," Emily said suddenly, licking her spoon, "are you going to make Mom cry?" The silence that followed was tense. Sarah froze, not knowing how to intervene. David set his spoon aside, turning completely to Emily. "I hope not," he said honestly. "But you know, Emily, sometimes we hurt the people we love even without meaning to. The important thing is to try very hard not to do that, and if it happens, to apologize and try to fix it. But I promise you, if I ever make your mom cry from sadness, you have my permission to be mad at me. I will be mad. I protect my mom, always." "I know, and that makes you an amazing daughter." David extended his pinky. "Pinky, promise that I will try very hard to make her smile, not cry." Emily considered for a moment, then intertwined her pinky with his. "Pinky promise, but if you break it, I will be very mad, like that. In time I got mad at the boy who made fun of my old lunchbox at school. I punched him." "Emily!" Sarah exclaimed, but David was laughing. "Remember that then. You don't want to get punched by this warrior." When they returned to the apartment, it was already past 10, much later than Emily usually stayed up on a Friday. The girl was starting to doze off in the back seat of the car, her head heavy against the seatbelt. David carried her up the stairs when they arrived, the girl curled in his arms as if she had done it 1,000 times before. "Second floor, 3rd apartment on the right," Sarah murmured, searching for the keys in her bag. Inside, David carefully placed Emily on the couch while Sarah fetched her pajamas. The girl was so sleepy that she barely protested when Sarah changed her right there, only murmuring something about unicorns and ice cream. "I'll put her to bed," Sarah whispered to David, who was waiting near the door. "Wait here." "Of course." When Sarah returned 5 minutes later, having put her daughter to bed and gone through the whole bedtime ritual, she found David still near the door, hands in his pockets, a thoughtful expression on his face. "She's amazing," he said softly. "Smart, funny, protective. You did a perfect job with her." "We did, she and I together." Sarah stepped closer. "Thank you for tonight, for being so, for treating her like a real person. Many adults don't do that with kids." "How could I not? She's a real person. A very important person in the life of the woman I'm falling for." David paused, and Sarah saw the exact moment he realized what he had said. "Sorry, was that too soon to say?" Sarah felt her heart race. "I'm falling for you too, and that scares me because there's so much at stake, but it's true." David closed the distance between them, his hands finding her face with that tenderness that always made her tremble. "Let's take it slow. No pressure, just let's see where this leads us." They kissed right there, in the tiny hallway of the simple apartment, and Sarah felt as if she were falling and flying at the same time. When they pulled apart, both smiling like teenagers, David rested his forehead against hers. "I should go, it's late, and you have a daughter who will wake up early tomorrow wanting pancakes or something equally labor-intensive." "Probably," Sarah admitted, "but do you want to come tomorrow? For pancakes, Emily would be happy to see you again." "Are you sure?" "I am. You passed her test, which is harder than any job interview." "Then yes. What time?" "9. She wakes up with the chickens. I'll be here at 9 on the dot. And Sarah?" He kissed her once more, quick and sweet. "Thank you for letting me into your lives. I won't take this lightly." "I promise." After he left, Sarah stood at the door for long minutes just processing. It had happened. It had really happened. David met Emily, and it had been perfect, natural, right in a way that scared her because now there was even more to lose. In the bedroom she found Emily awake, or re-awake, sitting on the bed hugging the old teddy bear she had since she was a baby. "I couldn't sleep well," the girl admitted. "I kept thinking." Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. "Thinking about what, sweetheart?" "If David is going to stay, like not just today, but really stay." Sarah pulled her daughter into a hug. "I don't know, little one. We hope so. But sometimes things don't work out the way we want, even when we try really hard. He's nice, I like him, and he really makes you happy." Emily pulled back to look into her mom's eyes. "But Mom, if he doesn't stay, if he leaves like my dad, will you be really sad?" The question broke Sarah's heart. Her 7-year-old daughter, already so aware of abandonment, so protective, so scared that happiness was temporary. "I will be sad, yes, but you know what will stay? You and me. We've always had each other, we've always had our team, and that doesn't change, no matter who comes or goes in our lives. We are eternal. Deal? Deal." Emily yawned, finally letting sleep overcome her. "Mom, I think he will stay. He looks at you the way I look at my favorite ice cream, like this is special and I don't want to lose it." Sarah laughed through tears, kissing her daughter's forehead. "You are too wise for your age, you know." "I know. I inherited it from my amazing mum." That night, lying in her own bed in the finally separate room, Sarah allowed herself to feel hope, scary, fragile hope, but real. Maybe, just maybe, they could make it work. Maybe love was enough when combined with respect, honesty, and courage. Her phone vibrated. Message from David. "I just got home and can only think about you two, about how that amazing girl is protective and funny and smart, about how you are the most dedicated mom I know, about how I want to be part of this. Thank you for letting me try. Sleep well. Sarah typed back, "We're already waiting for you tomorrow for pancakes." Emily said you passed her test. That's more important than anything. Good night, David. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah fell asleep with a smile on her face and the feeling that the future, despite being uncertain, had the potential to be beautiful. In the apartment across town, David was also smiling, looking at the photo he discreetly took during dinner. Sarah and Emily laughing at something, their eyes shining, the connection between mother and daughter so obvious and so beautiful that it hurt. He set it as his phone wallpaper, replacing the standard photo he always used, and thought, "This is my family, or it will be if I don't mess it up." The following Monday at the office brought a new dynamic. Sarah and David were more careful than ever not to show favoritism or intimacy at work, but there was a lightness about them that some noticed. Jessica certainly noticed immediately. "So," she said, appearing in Sarah's office with coffee, "how was dinner? How do you know there was dinner? Please, you are glowing, and I saw the boss smiling to himself in the elevator this morning. 2 + 2 = 4. Sarah sighed, but she was smiling. It was perfect. He was perfect with her, and she liked him, which is everything. And now? And now we take it slow. No pressure, seeing where this leads. You deserve this, Sarah. You deserve to be happy. Don't forget that when things get tough. Because they will get tough." And Jessica, as always, was right. Because at the very moment Sarah allowed herself to feel hope, forces she couldn't even imagine were already moving against her. In the boardroom of Anderson and Partners, conversations were being had, observations were being made, and Beatrice Anderson was beginning to move more deliberately. The storm was brewing. Sarah just didn't know it yet. September arrived with that deceptive promise of spring in New York, days that started cold and ended muggy, a sky that couldn't decide between gray and blue. Sarah was in her third coordination meeting of the week, listening to Ryan explain the new performance metrics the department would need to implement when her phone vibrated discreetly in her lap. A message from the company's executive secretary. "Extraordinary board meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Your presence is requested to present the administrative productivity report. Please confirm receipt." Sarah furrowed her brow. Coordinators were rarely called to board meetings. This was territory for directors and senior managers. She replied confirming her attendance and tried to focus on the rest of the meeting, but an uncomfortable feeling settled in her stomach. After the meeting, she messaged David, "I was called to the board tomorrow. Is that normal?" The reply came 15 minutes later. "Not completely uncommon, but it's also not routine. They probably want first-hand data about the changes in the department. Don't worry, you are excellent at what you do." But Sarah was worried, especially when that night, while helping Emily with her math homework, she received a call from a private number. "Hello? Sarah? It's Beatrice Anderson." Sarah felt her blood run cold. She signaled for Emily to continue solving the problems on her own and went to the kitchen, closing the door. "Ms. Anderson, I imagine you received the notice for tomorrow's meeting." Beatrice's voice was polite, but there was something sharp underneath. "I wanted to give you a heads up, woman to woman. Some board members have concerns about certain recent promotions. They will ask questions, difficult questions. My promotion was based on merit. The numbers prove it. I know, you know, but not everyone is convinced. And tomorrow will be your chance to prove, or not, that your performance justifies your current position." A pause. "And Sarah? It will be much easier if you keep things purely professional. No personal complications that could cloud people's judgment." Sarah gripped the phone tightly. "With all due respect, Mrs. Anderson, my personal life is not the board's business. Everything becomes the board's business when it involves the CEO of the company. Think about it." And she hung up. Sarah stood still in the tiny kitchen, anger, and fear battling within her. So this was it. Beatrice was making her move, not directly, not openly, but through the board, through legitimate concerns about nepotism and favoritism. She called David immediately. "Your mum just called me." "What?" His voice tensed instantly. "What did she say?" Sarah relayed the conversation. She could hear David breathing heavily on the other end. "Son of a bitch," he murmured, and Sarah had never heard so much controlled anger in his voice. "Sorry, but this... She had no right. I'm going to talk to her now." "No." Sarah surprised herself with her firmness. "You won't. That's exactly what she wants, to create conflict, to make you choose, to make it seem like I'm causing problems in the family. I'm going to that meeting tomorrow and I'm going to prove, with numbers and facts, that I deserve my position. Without your help, without interference, it has to be this way." "Sarah, it has to, David. You know it has to." The silence on the other end was long. "You're right, but I hate this. I hate that you have to fight harder than anyone else just because I know, but it's the reality, and I can handle it. I know you can. You're stronger than anyone I know." He sighed. "I'll be there at the meeting. I'll have to bite my tongue and act professionally, even if my mom or anyone else tries to attack you. But afterward, I'm going to have a very serious conversation with her about boundaries and respect." "That's fine. Just not tomorrow. Tomorrow has to be about work. Just work." That night, Sarah stayed up until 2 in the morning preparing her presentation. She printed all the performance audit data, all the productivity reports from the department since she took over as coordinator, comparisons with previous periods showing consistent improvement. She rehearsed answers to every difficult question she could imagine, each word carefully chosen to convey competence without arrogance, confidence without defensiveness. Emily woke up in the middle of the night and found her mom still at the kitchen table surrounded by papers. "Mom, why aren't you sleeping?" Sarah looked at her daughter with tired eyes. "I have a very important meeting tomorrow, sweetheart. I'm preparing." "Are you going to be okay?" There was concern in the girl's voice. "I will. I always do." Sarah opened her arms, and Emily came to snuggle in her lap, her head on her mum's shoulder. "We always do, remember? You and me. And David too now?" Sarah felt her chest tighten. "I hope so, little one. I hope so." The boardroom was on the 20th floor, a floor Sarah rarely had reason to visit. It was all glass and fine wood, with a long, polished mahogany table, genuine leather chairs, and a panoramic view of Fifth Avenue that was probably worth more than Sarah's entire apartment. 7 people were already seated when she entered at 9:55 a.m. 5 minutes before the scheduled time, Beatrice Anderson at the opposite head from David, 3 men in suits that Sarah vaguely recognized as shareholders and investors, and 2 women, one of them Sylvia from Human Resources, the other a corporate lawyer named Dr. Johnson. "Miss Johnson, thank you for coming," said Dr. Roberts, the oldest shareholder, gesturing to a chair in the middle of the table. "Please, have a seat." Sarah sat down, placing her folder with the documents on the table, back straight, hands calm in her lap, even though her heart was racing. David was next to his mother, his face carefully neutral, but Sarah saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed almost imperceptibly on the table. "As you know," Dr. Roberts began, "this meeting has been called to discuss some concerns that have arisen regarding our internal promotion processes. Specifically, we want to better understand the criteria that led to certain recent decisions in the administrative department." "With all due respect," David interrupted, his voice calm but firm, "there was a complete audit of all evaluation processes. The results were distributed in a memo. The data is transparent." Yes, we saw the data, Another shareholder, Henry Anderson, a distant cousin of David, said with a dismissive wave of his hand, "But numbers can be interpreted in various ways. We want to hear directly from Miss Johnson about her performance and qualifications." "I'm here to answer whatever you need," Sarah said firmly, meeting the eyes of each person at the table. She would not show fear. She would not show that she knew exactly what was happening. During the next hour they asked questions, some legitimate about processes and metrics, others clearly designed to destabilize. Beatrice remained silent most of the time, just observing with that calculating look, letting the others do the dirty work. "Miss Johnson," Henry leaned forward, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You have a high school diploma, correct? You never finished college?" "Correct. I completed 3 semesters of business administration, withdrew when I got pregnant, and I'm resuming now through the scholarship the company offers." "And yet, you were promoted to coordinator, a position that traditionally requires a complete higher education." "The promotion came with the condition that I complete my degree, yes, but it also came based on consistently exceptional performance, 0 errors. In 8 months of work as an assistant, all the timely deliveries and successful leadership of the North America project that resulted in the largest contract for the company this year." "Ah, yes, the North America project." Henry flipped through some papers. "Interesting how you were personally selected by the CEO to lead this project. Someone might question whether there were criteria beyond professional qualifications involved in that choice." The room fell into a tense silence. Sarah saw David stiffen, his knuckles white from gripping the table so tightly. She took a deep breath. "Someone might question," she said calmly, "but they would be wrong. I was chosen because I had the best organizational metrics and data accuracy in the department. That's documented, and the results speak for themselves. The project was delivered 3 days ahead of schedule, with 0 errors, and resulted in an $8 million contract. If the issue here is competence, the numbers answer that." "The issue here," Beatrice finally spoke, her voice cutting through the air like a sharp blade, "is perception. We may have all the numbers in the world, but if employees, if the market, if our investors perceive favoritism or nepotism, it damages the company's reputation." Sarah turned to face her directly. "With all due respect, Mrs. Anderson, perception is manipulable. Perception changes with narrative. The question should be, are we making decisions based on facts or gossip? Because if it's gossip, then no woman in this company is safe. Any promoted woman could be questioned about whether she seduced someone to get there. Any competent woman could be reduced to her appearance or personal relationships instead of her work." "No one is saying that," Dr. Tavares began, but Sarah interrupted him. "Aren't they? Then why am I here? Why, of all recent promotions, is specifically mine being questioned? Ryan was promoted to manager. Is he being called to this meeting? Paul was promoted to CFO. Did he have to defend his qualifications? Or is it just me, the young woman, the single mum, the person without a degree yet, who has to repeatedly prove that she is not a fraud?" The silence that followed was absolute. Beatrice watched her with an expression Sarah couldn't decipher. There was something there, perhaps reluctant respect, perhaps just a re-evaluation of strategy. "Miss Johnson makes a valid point," Dr. Ferreira, the lawyer, said carefully. "Selectively questioning a promotion without clear evidence of wrongdoing could expose us to accusations of discrimination, especially when the performance data is unequivocal. Moreover," Sylvia from Human Resources added, "the audit we commissioned was conducted by an external firm, without internal interference. They confirmed that the processes followed all protocols. If we invalidate a promotion based purely on objective data, we set a dangerous precedent." Henry looked around the table, realizing he was losing support. I'm just saying we should be careful. Appearances matter in the corporate world. And I am saying, David finally spoke, his voice restrained but as hard as steel, that if we are going to start undoing deserved promotions based on appearances, then perhaps we should re-evaluate all the relatives of shareholders who work here, starting with Henry's 3 nephews in the sales department who never meet their targets but keep their jobs. Henry turned red. That's completely different. Is it? How? Gentlemen, please, Dr. Tavares intervened. This is not productive. Miss Johnson, thank you for your clear presentation and the data. The board will deliberate and we will return with any necessary decisions. Sarah stood up, grabbing her briefcase. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. And for the record, I work more hours than anyone in my department. I arrive earlier, leave later, and have the best performance evaluations. If that's not enough, then tell me exactly what is. Because I refuse to be punished for being competent while also being a woman. She left the room without looking back, holding her head high until she was alone in the elevator. Only then did she let her hands shake. Only then did she let the tears of anger and frustration burn her eyes. Her phone buzzed. David, you were amazing. I'm proud and very angry, but mostly proud. Sarah replied, I just want it to be over. I just want to do my job without being judged for everything beyond it. I know. I'm sorry for that. Sorry it has to be so hard. It's not your fault. It's just the world. But when Sarah returned to her office, she found something waiting on her desk, a handwritten note on expensive cream paper. You have courage. I respect that, even if I have my doubts. I hope you prove me wrong. BC. Sarah held the note for long minutes. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't approval. But it was something. A recognition that she had defended herself, had fought with dignity, had refused to bend. At 6 in the evening, when Sarah was about to leave to pick up Emily from school, Sylvia from Human Resources appeared in her office. The board has deliberated. The decision was unanimous. Your promotion stands without question. Moreover, they approved a new policy. All promotions will be based on measurable objective criteria, and any questioning will require concrete evidence, not speculation. Sylvia smiled. You caused a small revolution today, Sarah. Kind of unintentionally, but you did. Sarah felt a huge weight lift off her shoulders. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for fighting. Many women here needed someone to say these things out loud. That night, after putting Emily to bed, Sarah was in the kitchen making tea when she heard the doorbell. She looked through the peephole and saw David, still in his work suit, looking exhausted and tense. She opened the door. Hi. Hi. Can I come in? Of course. He stepped inside, loosened his tie and ran his hands through his hair in that already familiar gesture. I just had the worst fight of my life with my mom. Sarah closed the door. David, no, let me talk. I told her I won't tolerate any more interference, that my personal life is not her territory, that if she can't respect my choices, then I will have to re-evaluate her role. In the company. He looked at Sarah, his intense green eyes. She crossed a line today, several lines, and I'm not going to let her do that again. And what did she say? That she's trying to protect me, that the world is cruel and I'm naive, that you're going to hurt me or use me. He took a step towards Sarah. And I said I'd rather be hurt trying for something real than spend my whole life safe in solitude. I said you're the most genuine person I've ever met. And if she can't see that, the problem is hers, not yours. Sarah felt warm tears streaming down her face. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to create conflict with your family because of me. It's not because of you. It's for us. For me too. He touched her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. I'm not going to have a relationship where you have to fight alone against unfair judgments. I'm not going to be the coward who lets you take all the arrows while I stay safe in the shadows. If we're going to do this, we do it together. And that means I set boundaries with my mum, defend you when necessary, and make it very clear that you're not a whim or a phase. You are everything." Sarah kissed him, pouring all her gratitude, all her fear, all the growing love she felt into that kiss. When they broke apart, she murmured against his lips, "This is going to continue being difficult. I know. Your mom probably won't give up so easily. I know. And there will always be people judging, questioning, gossiping. I know." He rested his forehead against hers. "But today you proved something important. You proved that you can fight for yourself, that you have a voice and strength and won't accept being belittled. And that makes me want to fight by your side even more." They stayed like that for long minutes, just holding each other in the simple kitchen, two different worlds trying to find a way to fit together. "Stay with me tonight," Sarah whispered. "Just to sleep, just to be close. Emily is sleeping, we have to be discreet, but I need you near." "Always," he promised, "whenever you need." And that night, lying side by side on the small double bed that barely fit them both, fully dressed, just intertwined, Sarah finally allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. But upstairs in an apartment on the Upper East Side, Beatrice Anderson was sitting with a glass of wine, looking at her eldest son's wedding photo, and making decisions that would still change everything. October brought true spring to New York, warm days, clear skies, that renewed energy that made the city feel less chaotic. Sarah had been in her role for 2 months and was finally starting to feel like she belonged there. Management meetings no longer intimidated her, her team respected her, and the department's numbers continued to improve consistently. At night, she studied for the college degree she had resumed, balancing work, motherhood, and education on a tightrope that left her exhausted but fulfilled. And there was David. In the last 2 months, they had found a rhythm. Alternate weekends with Emily, parks, museums, once even to Long Beach, where the girl built sandcastles and David pretended to be a dragon trying to destroy them. Dinners during the week when Emily stayed with her aunt, constant messages throughout the day, nothing obvious at work but enough to maintain the connection. He was careful, he was discreet, but it was real. Emily was getting attached. Sarah saw the small signs, the way the girl asked, "Is David coming today?" with increasing excitement, how she saved drawings to show him, how she began to naturally include him in the stories she told about school. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, because now there were not just 2 hearts at risk, but 3. "Mom," Emily said one Thursday night while Sarah was braiding her hair before bed, "can I ask a question?" "Always, sweetheart." "David is your boyfriend now, right? Like, really your boyfriend?" Sarah paused the braid. They had been careful not to label things too quickly, but it was inevitable that a smart kid like Emily would connect the dots. "Yes, he is my boyfriend. Are you okay with that?" "I am." Emily turned to face her mother. "But can I ask something serious?" "Of course." "If you guys stay together for a long time, like really long, is he going to live with us?" Sarah's heart raced. She and David hadn't discussed long-term futures yet, too careful not to pressure, but obviously Emily was thinking ahead. "I don't know, sweetheart. It's too early to think about that." "Why?" "It's just that I really like him. A lot. But I don't want you to forget that it's just you and me, our team, just like you always said." The girl's eyes were misty. "Even if he comes to live with us, it will still be our team first, right?" Sarah pulled her daughter into a tight hug, feeling her own heart break. "Always, always, always, always. No one changes that. David can be part of our team, but you and I, we're the core. What I have with you is different. It's special. It's eternal. Nothing and no one changes that. Deal? Deal. Emily pulled away, wiping her eyes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I like him, but I like you more. And I like you more than anyone in the whole world. The following Friday, Sarah was in the conference room reviewing reports when Sylvia from Human Resources appeared with an expression that immediately put her on alert. Sarah, I need to talk to you. Privately. They went to Sarah's office, door closed. Sylvia sat down with a heavy sigh. An anonymous complaint came to HR today about you and the CEO. Sarah's blood ran cold. What kind of complaint? It alleges that you two have a personal relationship and that this constitutes a conflict of interests. A formal investigation is requested. Sylvia raised her hands before Sarah could speak. I know that technically you don't have a direct hierarchical relationship right now. I know your promotion was audited and approved, but a formal complaint requires protocol. I'm going to have to ask some questions. Sarah felt nausea rising. Ask. Are you in a romantic relationship with David Anderson? Lying would be worse. Lying would confirm that they had something to hide. Sarah took a deep breath. Yes, we've been in a relationship for about 2 months. Sylvia nodded, taking notes. Did this relationship start before or after your promotion? Technically before, but there was nothing formal. It was casual dating, getting to know each other. The relationship only defined itself after I changed positions. Did he ever promise professional favors in exchange for personal involvement? Never, not once. That was never discussed or even hinted at. Do you feel that your personal relationship influences your professional decisions or his? No. We are extremely careful to keep things separate at work. He has never given me preferential treatment. He has never asked me to do anything that would compromise my professional ethics. Sylvia finished writing and looked at Sarah sympathetically. I believe you, but you understand that this will have to be officially investigated. I will need to interview other people, check corporate communications, all the protocol. And Sarah, this is going to attract attention. People will talk. They already are. They will talk more, and louder. After Sylvia left, Sarah sat in her office for long minutes, trying to control the shaking in her hands. She texted David, "Someone filed a formal complaint about us with HR. Investigation starts." The response came almost instantly. "I'm on my way." "No, not here at work. This is exactly what we can't do." "Then where?" "My place, tonight, 8 p.m. We need to have a serious talk about this." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Sarah felt eyes on her, whispers that ceased when she approached. The gossip was already spreading. In companies, news like this traveled at the speed of light. Jessica showed up around 5, closing the office door without asking for permission. "Is it true?" Sarah didn't pretend not to understand. "Yes." "How long?" 2 months officially, but there were things before that. Jessica sat heavily. "Sarah, sweetheart, do you know what a hornet's nest this is?" "I know. Believe me, I know. But Jessica, I wasn't looking for this. It just happened. And he is good. He is genuine. It's not about money or position or anything beyond real connection. I believe you. The problem is that half the people here won't believe it. They'll think you calculated everything, that you seduced the rich boss, that it's the classic Cinderella story without scruples. And the other half? We'll think you're a victim of him, that he took advantage of a vulnerable employee, that you didn't have a real choice because he has power." Jessica sighed. "No narrative favors you, Sarah. It's unfair, it's misogynistic, but it's the reality. So what do I do? You keep your head up. You continue to excel at your job. You let the numbers speak for you. And Sarah..." Jessica looked at her seriously. Are you sure he's worth all this? Because you're betting a lot. Your reputation, your career, Emily's stability. Are you sure? Sarah thought of David with Emily, building sandcastles. She thought of him studying with her at the kitchen table, helping with math that he mastered but explained patiently. She thought of the way he looked at her, as if she were the most precious thing in the world. She thought about how, for the first time in years, she felt seen, valued, loved for who she truly was. "I'm sure," she said softly. "I'm more sure of this than anything." At 8 in the evening, David was at the door, looking as tense as Sarah felt. Emily was already asleep. She had an early class the next morning. So they sat in the living room, facing each other, with the television on low volume providing background noise. "It was my mom," David said, without preamble. "I don't have proof, but I know it was her. She's the only one who would have the motive and access to file an anonymous complaint." "You can't be sure." "Sarah, I know my mum. She said she was going to protect the legacy of the company." "That's her move." He ran his hands over his face, exhausted. "I'm going to confront her. I'm going to demand that she withdraws the complaint." "You can't withdraw an anonymous complaint, and even if you could, that would only make things worse. It would look like a cover-up, like you're using your power to protect me. So what do we do?" Sarah took a deep breath. "We cooperate with the investigation. We provide all the information they ask for. We show that there's no conflict of interest because I don't have a direct reporting relationship with you. We show that my promotion was before the relationship formalized, and—" She hesitated. "And maybe we consider making this public. Officially." David stared at her. "Public how?" "Like admitting that we're together, not hiding anymore. Because the more we hide, the more it looks like we have something wrong to hide. If we're open, honest, maybe it takes the power away from the gossip, or maybe it makes everything worse. Maybe it exposes you even more. I'm already exposed, David. The complaint has been made. The investigation is going to happen. In 2 weeks, everyone in this company will know or speculate about us. The only choice we have is to control the narrative or let others control it for us." David was silent for long minutes, processing. "And Emily? How does this affect her?" "I don't know, but I need to be honest with her about why things might get difficult. She's smart, enough to notice that something is wrong. I hate this. I hate that a 7-year-old has to deal with the consequences of adults not being able to stay in their own lane. I do too, but it's our reality." David moved to sit next to her on the sofa, taking her hand. "If we go public, if we admit this, it's going to be much more. It's harder for you than for me. I'm the CEO. They're going to roll their eyes, they're going to make some comments, but my position is secure. You will bear the weight of the judgment, I know, and yet you're willing." Sarah looked at her intertwined hands, hers smaller, rough from work, his larger, smoother but fitting perfectly together. "I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of pretending that you're not important to me. I'm tired of living in fear of what people will think, so yes, I'm willing, but only if you are too, because I can't do this alone, Mark. I need you by my side, publicly, not just in secret. You have me. You always have." He kissed her fingers. "Okay, let's do this the right way. Monday morning, I'll officially inform the board about our relationship. I'll make it clear that it started after the restructuring, which was audited and approved by Human Resources. I'll propose that you report to a different manager if that removes any appearance of conflict." "Isn't that going to ruin your relationship with your mom?" My relationship with my mom is already ruined. She chose control over trust. She chose appearances over happiness. I won't repeat my father's mistakes. He let her control everything, including who he dated, and he was miserable his whole life. I refuse." He looked at Sarah with intensity. "I choose you. I choose us. I choose the possibility of something real over the security of something empty." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. "I choose you too, and I'm really scared, but I choose you." They kissed there, on the simple sofa of the modest apartment, and it was different from the other kisses. It was commitment. It was declaration. It was the door closing on a life of secrets and opening to something uncertain but honest. "There's one thing I need to ask you," Mark said when they pulled apart. "I need you to trust me. In the coming weeks, I'll have to make decisions, take moves that may not make sense immediately. I need you to trust that I'm on your side, even when it seems like I'm not." That's cryptic and scary. I know, but my mum isn't the only force at play here. There's politics on the board, shareholders who want to see me fail since I took over. There are people who will use our relationship as a weapon. I need to play a bit of chess, and I need you to trust that every move is to protect us. Sarah studied his face, the sincerity there, the determination, but also concern. "I trust you. But if at any point I need to sacrifice my dignity or integrity to play this chess game, stop, because it's not worth it. Never. I promise, never." After Mark left, it was almost midnight. Sarah checked on Emily, deeply asleep, hugging her old teddy bear, and then sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, thinking. Monday would be a turning point, one direction or another, but there would be no more middle ground. She could lose her job, unlikely given the numbers and the audit, but possible if they pushed hard enough. She could lose her reputation, more likely, because gossip always travelled faster than facts. She could expose Emily to scrutiny that the girl didn't deserve. But she could also gain something rare, the possibility of living authentically, of not hiding who she loved, of modelling for her daughter. That courage wasn't the absence of fear, but action despite fear. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "You have courage. I'll give you that. I hope Mark is worth what you're going to lose. B.A." Sarah stared at the message for long minutes. It wasn't a direct threat. It was a warning, a recognition. Beatrice Anderson was complex, a woman who rose to vice president at a time when women were rare in boardrooms, who built power in a male-dominated world, who fiercely protected her son. Sarah could disagree with her methods, but she understood the motivations. She typed back, "He is worth it. And I hope one day you see in him what I see. A man trying to be different from his father, trying to lead with heart, not just spreadsheets. He needs your support, not your control. I hope we can find a way to coexist." She didn't expect a response. But 10 minutes later, Monday, 7 a.m., Café de Flore. "You and me, before the board. If he's going to be part of my son's life, we need to sort some things out." Sarah looked at her phone. Her first instinct was to refuse, but then she thought, what better way to disarm an adversary than to sit face to face, without intermediaries, without games? "I'll be there." She spent the weekend in a haze of nerves and preparation. Saturday, she took Emily to the park, trying to maintain normalcy, but the girl noticed. "You're worried about something, Mum. I can see it on your forehead. It's all wrinkled." Sarah smoothed her forehead self-consciously. "It's work, sweetheart. Boring adult stuff. Is it because of Mark? Partly, but it will be okay. You always say that. And it always is, isn't it? You and I, we always end up okay in the end. But sometimes it hurts in the middle," Emily said with wisdom beyond her years. "Like when we moved apartments, it was hard in the middle with all the boxes and tiredness, but then it turned out good." Sarah hugged her daughter. "Exactly like that, little one. Exactly like that." On Sunday night, after Emily fell asleep, Mark called. "My mum told me you two are meeting tomorrow morning." "She told you?" "No, I overheard her on the phone making plans with someone, pieced it together." He paused. "Sarah, you don't have to do this. You don't need to meet her alone." "I know, but I want to. If I'm going to be in your life, in your family's life, we're eventually going to have to find a way to coexist. Better to start now. She can be brutal, she doesn't play fair. And you think I do? I grew up poor, David. I raised a daughter on my own. I survived her father abandoning us, jobs where I earned less than the minimum needed, and bills that never added up. Your mother is intimidating, but she's not the hardest thing I've ever faced." She heard the smile in his voice. "You're amazing. You know that? I'm a survivor. It's different. No, you're amazing. And I love you." The words fell between them like bombs. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. Sarah felt her heart stop, restart, race. "I love you," he repeated more firmly. "And I know it's early. I know it's complicated, but it's true. And I need you to know that before tomorrow, before anything happens. I love you, Sarah. I love your strength, your integrity, the mother you are, the person you are. I love how you challenge me, how you won't accept anything less than honesty, how you've built a beautiful life despite all the hardships. I love you." Sarah wiped the tears that were streaming down her face. "I love you too, and that terrifies me because I have so much to lose, but it's true. I love you. Then let's fight, together. For this." "Together," she agreed. Monday arrived cold and grey, threatening rain. Sarah woke up at 5, unable to sleep any longer. She prepared carefully, the most formal suit she owned, understated yet impeccable makeup, hair tied up in a professional bun, armor for battle. At 7 on the dot, she entered Café de Flore. Beatrice was already there at the same table in the back, same impeccable posture, but there was something different in her eyes, fatigue, perhaps, or re-evaluation. "Miss Johnson, please sit." Sarah sat down, back straight, hands calmly in her lap. She waited. Beatrice studied her for long seconds. "My son told me he loves you." Sarah didn't look away. "I love him too. And do you understand what that means? The scrutiny, the judgment, the pressure of being with someone like him." "I understand, and I choose it anyway." Beatrice took a sip of coffee. "You're not what I wanted for him. You don't have the background, the education, the connections that would make sense for his position." "I know. But," Beatrice paused, "you have something none of the suitable candidates had. You challenge him. You don't let him hide behind his last name. You've built something real on your own, without advantages. And David, he's different since he met you. More grounded, more determined, less lost." Sarah waited, not knowing where this was going. "I still have my reservations. I still think it would be difficult. But I saw you stand up for yourself at the board meeting. I saw you refuse to bend, and..." Beatrice sighed, suddenly looking older. "And I don't want my son to repeat his father's mistakes. I controlled too much, pressured too much, and he's been unhappy his whole life because I thought I knew better." "Mrs. Anderson, let me finish." Beatrice looked directly at Sarah. "I won't make it easy. I won't pretend to fully approve, but I also won't actively work against you anymore. The complaint to Human Resources wasn't mine. I swear on everything sacred. But when I find out who it was, I'll deal with it. Because if my son chose you, then I need to respect that, even if I don't fully understand." Sarah felt something tighten in her chest. It wasn't warm approval, but it was a truce. It was a beginning. "Thank you. And Mrs. Anderson, I'm not trying to take him away from you. I'm not trying to replace you or your family. I'm just trying to love him the best way I know how, with honesty and respect and effort to be worthy of him." "He already thinks you're too worthy." That's the problem. Beatrice almost smiled. But maybe, just maybe, he's right. They spent another 20 minutes talking more civilly. They didn't become friends. Perhaps they never would, but they found mutual understanding, reluctant respect, a foundation for coexistence. When Sarah left the cafe, feeling as if she had climbed a mountain, her phone buzzed. David. How did it go? I survived, and I think it will be okay. Eventually. I love you. See you at the board meeting at 10. I love you too. And yes, together. Sarah walked through the streets of New York, feeling the cold drizzle on her face, and for the first time in weeks, allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, love would be enough when, combined with courage and honesty. The board meeting at 10 in the morning had a different atmosphere. Sarah wasn't being called this time. She was there as part of the audience, along with other managers and coordinators, because David had requested an extraordinary General Assembly. The auditorium on the 20th floor was packed, board members in the front, directors in the first rows, managers and coordinators behind. Sarah sat strategically in the middle, not too far forward to seem presumptuous, nor too far back to seem cowardly. Jessica was beside her, having insisted on sitting next to her for moral support, even if I don't fully understand what's happening. Around her, Sarah felt the gazes, the barely concealed whispers. Everyone knew something important was about to happen, but no one knew exactly what. David walked in at 10 on the dot, followed by Beatrice and the other board members. He wore a dark grey suit, a navy tie, and there was a determination in his demeanour that Sarah rarely saw. He didn't look at her, not yet, maintaining professionalism as he positioned himself on the small stage in front. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming on. Such short notice. I know this was a last-minute call, but there are issues that need to be addressed publicly, with transparency." He paused, looking around the room. "In recent months, we've implemented several changes in this company. Promotion process audits, transparency and evaluation criteria, clearer policies on workplace relationships. We did this because we believe that a strong company is a fair company." Sarah saw Beatrice in the front row, her face carefully neutral. "However," David continued, "a complaint has recently emerged. Human Resources alleging a conflict of interest between me and an employee. This complaint is being investigated as protocol requires, but I would like to get ahead of any speculation and be completely transparent with all of you." The silence in the room was absolute. Sarah felt all eyes turning in her direction, even though David had not yet named her. "I am in a personal relationship with Sarah Johnson, the administrative coordinator." He finally looked at her, and there was so much affection and determination in that gaze that Sarah felt her heart tighten. This relationship began to develop about 4 months ago, but it only formalized 2 months ago, after the hierarchical structure changed, and there was no longer a direct reporting relationship between us. Whispers exploded throughout the room. David raised his hand, asking for silence. "I understand that this may raise questions. I understand that some people will question propriety, ethics, appearances. Therefore, I want to be absolutely clear about some facts." He picked up a remote control, and a screen behind him lit up, showing data. Miss Johnson's promotion was audited by an external company. Her performance numbers were, and continue to be, the best in the department. Her promotion was based on objective merit, not personal relationship. The screen changed, showing organizational charts. Furthermore, the current structure of the company places 4 levels of management between me and Miss Johnson. There is no direct hierarchical relationship. However, to remove any appearance of a conflict of interest, I propose an additional change. The administrative coordination will report directly to the operations board, completely removing me from the chain of command. Dr. Thompson, the oldest shareholder, raised his hand. "Mr. Anderson, with all due respect, why are you making this public announcement? Personal matters are generally kept private. Because privacy has become impossible. Because gossip is circulating and harming not only me but an exceptional employee who does not deserve to have her work questioned. And because I believe in transparency." David looked around the room. "I could hide. I could be discreet, keep everything secret. But that would be dishonest. And if I am asking this company to operate with integrity, I need to model that." Henry Anderson, the cousin who had been particularly hostile in the last meeting, stood up. "And what happens if this relationship ends? If there are complications, the company is exposed to lawsuits, accusations. All structural changes will be documented. Human Resources is aware and supervising. And Henry," David looked directly at his cousin, "if your concern is legal exposure, perhaps we should discuss your 3 nephews in the sales department who never meet their targets but still receive bonuses. Legal exposure works both ways." Some nervous laughter echoed through the room. Henry turned red and sat down. Beatrice finally stood up. Sarah felt her stomach churn. But when Beatrice spoke, her voice was measured, controlled. "My son is right. Transparency is essential. And while I have my personal reservations about this relationship, I recognize that it has been conducted within legal and ethical parameters." She looked around the room. "Miss Johnson has proven merit. If any of you question her competence, you will need to present concrete evidence, not speculation based on her personal life. As the vice president of this company and as a mother, I support the proposed structural changes to ensure that there is no appearance of conflict." Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. Beatrice was supporting, or at least not actively sabotaging. It was more than she expected. The meeting continued for another 40 minutes, with questions, discussions about the structural changes, formal votes. And David's proposals were approved by a majority. The administrative coordination would change its chain of command. Policies on workplace relationships would be updated and clarified, and everything would be documented with total transparency. When the meeting ended, Sarah sat still as people left, some casting curious glances, others simply relieved that the drama did not involve them directly. Jessica squeezed her hand. "You survived. Again." "Not yet. Now comes the hard part, living with everyone knowing. One day at a time, Sarah, one day at a time." Sarah returned to her office and dove into work, trying to maintain normalcy. But throughout the day, something unexpected happened. People began to show up. First was Ryan, her manager. "Sarah, I just wanted to say that your work has always been exemplary. It doesn't change anything for me that you're dating the CEO. You're still the best coordinator I've ever worked with." Then it was Sylvia from Human Resources. "The formal investigation is closed. We found no irregularities. And between you and me, what you did today was courageous. It sets a good precedent for transparency. Even some colleagues Sarah barely knew stopped by to murmur support or simply give a sympathetic nod. Not everyone. There were disapproving looks, whispered comments that she heard even while trying to ignore them, 1 or 2 people who clearly judged her. But it was less hostility than she expected. At 6 in the evening, when Sarah finally allowed herself to breathe, her phone rang. David. "Hi. Hi. How are you?" There was genuine concern in his voice. "Surprisingly, okay. Tired, but okay." She paused. "Thank you for everything you said today, for defending me publicly, for not being ashamed of me." "Sarah," his voice became intense, "never in any universe would I be ashamed of you. I am proud, so proud that it's almost overwhelming. Your mom supported, I can't believe it." I was surprised too. "Did you talk this morning?" "We did. It was enlightening. We're not best friends, but we found understanding. She respects you. She may not fully admit it, but she respects you. And for my mother, respect is the first step. David, and now? How do we navigate this? Carefully, honestly. And Sarah, I was thinking, maybe it's time for you to meet my dad, officially, as my girlfriend, not as an employee. Sarah's stomach churned. David's father, the legendary founder who had a stroke and now lived semi-reclusively, still a shareholder, but removed from management. This is big. It is, but important. He's been better lately, more lucid, and I think she would like to meet you, especially after hearing my mom talk about you. She talks about me with him. Apparently. I don't know exactly what she says, but I know she mentioned you. And my dad asked to meet the woman who left Beatrice speechless. Sarah laughed despite her nerves. When? Saturday? Lunch at his house in Aspen? We can bring Emily, if you want. There's a huge garden where she can play while we talk. Let me ask her. But David, your family is complicated. There are layers of dynamics that I barely understand. I'm afraid of saying or doing something wrong. You won't. You're authentic. That's all you need to be. That night, Sarah talked to Emily about the proposed weekend. The girl was excited about the idea of traveling to Aspen. She had never been to the mountains before. And are we going to meet David's grandpa? She asked, testing how the word sounded. Yes, but Emily, he's not your grandpa. Not yet. He may never officially be. He's just David's dad. But if you and David get married one day, he becomes my grandpa, right? Sarah felt her heart skip. Emily, no one is talking about marriage. It's too early to... But you want to, the girl said with that disconcerting perception. You want to because you love him. I can see it. Loving someone doesn't automatically mean marriage. There are many things to consider, many steps before... I know, Mom. I'm not silly. I'm just saying that if it happens, I would be happy. David is nice, and you are happy with him. Emily hugged her mom. And I want you to be happy. You deserve it. Sarah hugged her daughter back, amazed by the wisdom and generosity of this little girl. How did you get so wise, little one? I inherited it from the best. Friday passed in a blur of work and preparation. Sarah tried to keep her head down, focusing on reports and avoiding curious glances and comments as much as possible. However, around 3 in the afternoon, something unexpected happened. A woman she had never seen before, tall, elegant, with perfectly styled, platinum blonde hair, obviously designer clothes, entered the administrative department and asked for Sarah. When directed to her office, the woman entered without knocking, closing the door behind her. You are Sarah Johnson. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Sarah stood up, instinctively defensive. Yes, and you are... Helen Moore, David's ex-fiancée. The woman smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I thought we should talk. Sarah's blood ran cold. The ex-fiancée. The woman David had briefly mentioned, the one more interested in the 3-carat ring than the man. Sarah gestured to the chair in front of her desk, deciding to remain calm. Sit down if you want, although I'm not sure what we would have to talk about. Helen sat down, crossing her legs with studied elegance. I heard about his announcement on Monday. Everyone heard. The news spread through social circles like wildfire. She tilted her head, studying Sarah. You're not his type. Apparently, I am now. I understand the appeal, of course. The Cinderella story, the poor girl who wins the rich prince. Very romantic. The tone was venomous beneath the politeness. But do you really think it will last? That you have anything in common besides physical attraction and novelty? Sarah kept her voice calm, controlled. With all due respect, Helen, my relationship with David is not your concern. You broke up years ago. We broke up because he was too idealistic. He thought love should be about true connection and other nonsense. I was willing to be the right partner, to help expand the family business, to navigate the social circles that matter. But that wasn't enough for him. Helen leaned forward. Do you think that will be enough? You with no proper education, no connections, with a daughter from another man? I think, Sarah said calmly, that you came here to try to intimidate me or plant doubts, and it's not working. Because you know what David sees in me that you apparently didn't? Authenticity. I'm not with him for the bank account or the last name. I'm with him because I love the man he is, not the wealth he has. How noble. Helen laughed without humor. But love doesn't pay the bills, dear. Love doesn't get you into exclusive clubs or open doors in society. You'll always be the employee who climbed the ladder by sleeping with the boss. No matter how many audits prove otherwise, you'll always be remembered that way. Maybe. Sarah stood up, indicating that the conversation was over. But I'd rather be remembered as the woman who loved honestly than as the woman who calculated coldly. Now, if you'll excuse us, I have work to do. The door is over there. Helen lingered for a few seconds, surprised by the abrupt dismissal. Then she stood up, smoothing her skirt. He will hurt you eventually, or you will hurt him. People from different worlds don't work. Good day, Helen. After the woman left, Sarah sat, down heavily, her hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline. She picked up her phone and texted David. Your ex-fiancé just showed up at my work to talk. I thought you should know. The response came quickly. What? Are you okay? What did she say? I'm fine. She tried to intimidate me, plant doubts. It didn't work. But David, how many people are going to show up trying to destroy this? I don't know. But we'll deal with each one. Together. I'm sorry about her. I'll talk to her. No, don't give her the attention she wants. I handled it, and I will keep handling it. But I need you to understand, there will be a lot of people trying to pull us apart. We need to be really sure of each other. I am more sure of you than anything in my life? Then that's fine. Let's go to Aspen on Saturday and meet your dad, and we'll keep building this one day at a time. Friday night, Sarah. She packed a small suitcase for herself and Emily. Simple but clean clothes, nothing extravagant, because there was nothing extravagant to start with. David would pick them up Saturday at 8 in the morning for the 2-hour trip to Aspen. Emily was buzzing with excitement, jumping around the house while Sarah tried to get her to sleep. We're going to the mountains, Mom. I've never seen mountains up close. Do you think there will be snow? There's no snow right now, sweetheart. It's spring. But it will be cold, and there are beautiful trees and a big garden where you can play. And David's dad will be there. Do you think he will like me? He will love you. It's impossible not to love you. Finally, Emily fell asleep, and Sarah lay down next to her, staring at the ceiling, thinking. In just a few months, her whole life had changed. Promotion, public relations, meeting the family of the man she loved, facing judgments, gossip, even vengeful ex-fiancés. It was exhausting, it was scary, but it was also alive. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. She was betting big, yes, but she was betting on something real. Her phone vibrated. Message from David. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about you and how your courage inspires me every day. Tomorrow, when you meet my dad, just be yourself. That's all I need you to be. I love you, Sarah typed back. I'm terrified, but I'm excited too. We'll do this together, always together. I love you. She fell asleep like that, phone in hand, heart filled with equal measures of fear and hope. Ready for the next chapter of this impossible and beautiful story she was building one day at a time. Saturday dawned cold and clear. David arrived promptly at 8, and his smile when he saw Sarah and Emily waiting at the door was so genuine and warm that it eased some of Sarah's fears. Ready for the adventure? He asked, grabbing their small suitcase. Totally ready, Emily replied, bouncing into the back seat of the car. Sarah looked at David, saw the determination and love in his eyes, and thought, yes, we are ready for whatever comes. And with that thought, they set off towards the mountains, towards the next test, towards the uncertain but possibility-filled future they were building together. The road to Aspen wound through the mountains of the Sierra Madre, gradually climbing among pines and eucalyptus that grew denser with each kilometer. Emily had her face pressed against the window, marveling at the changing landscape from the urban grey of New York to the deep green of the mountains. Sarah held David's hand over the automatic gear shift, their fingers intertwined, trying to calm the butterflies that insisted on fluttering frantically in her stomach. "He will like you," David said for the third time, sensing her tension. "My dad is straightforward, sometimes brusque because of the stroke. He has trouble with some words, but he's a good man, and he's looking forward to meeting you." "And will your mom be there?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Yes, she spends the weekends there to be close to him, but Sarah, after your conversation on Monday, I think it will be different, less hostile." Sarah wasn't so sure, but she nodded. Through the rearview mirror, she saw Emily finally relax against her seatbelt, her heavy eyes beginning to close with the gentle motion of the car on the road. The girl had woken up at 6 out of excitement, and now fatigue was winning over enthusiasm. "Is she sleeping?" David asked softly. "Almost." "Good. Let her rest. She'll need energy for the garden at home. There's a hedge, maze that I loved when I was a kid." The house, David called it home, but Sarah would soon find out it was practically a mansion, was located on a secluded property surrounded by pines with wrought iron gates and a stone path leading to the main building. It was Alpine style, all dark wood and stone, with large windows reflecting the surrounding mountain landscape. Smoke was rising from one of the chimneys, promising warmth inside against the October chill in the mountains. Sarah gently woke Emily when they stopped. "We've arrived, sweetheart." The girl rubbed her eyes, still a bit sleepy, but soon fully awakened upon seeing the house. "Wow, is it a castle?" David laughed, opening the car door. "It's not exactly a castle, but it has a maze. Does that count?" "It counts." The front door opened before they reached it. Beatrice was on the threshold, wearing wool pants and a cream cashmere sweater, her blonde hair tied back in an elegant ponytail. She watched the group approach, her gaze landing on Sarah for a moment before softening slightly upon seeing Emily. "Welcome. Come in, it's cold." It wasn't effusive, but it wasn't hostile either. It was neutral. Progress. The interior of the house was cozy despite its size, dark wood everywhere, a fire burning in the main room, thick rugs, furniture that seemed to have stories. It smelled of burning wood and something delicious being prepared in the kitchen. Sarah identified lamb roasting with rosemary. "Dad is in the library," Beatrice said to David. "He's having a good day today, clear-headed, even cheerful, but don't push it if he gets tired." "Understood." David looked at Sarah, squeezing her hand encouragingly. "Ready?" "As ready as I can be." They walked down a hallway lined with family photos. David at various ages, graduation, trips, frozen moments of a privileged life. Sarah recognized a younger man in several photos. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair, eyes that seemed intense even in pictures. David's father before the stroke that had debilitated him. The library was a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a leather armchair facing windows that offered a view of the valley, and a man sitting there who turned when they entered. Charles. Charles Anderson was 72 years old, but he looked older. The stroke 5 years earlier had left its marks. One side of his face slightly drooping, his left hand with limited movement, but his eyes, the same green eyes as his son's, were alert and curious when they landed on Sarah. Dad," David said softly, approaching. "This is Sarah. And this," he gestured to Emily, who was hiding behind her mother, "is Emily." Charles studied Sarah for long seconds that felt eternal. Then, with a slightly slurred but perfectly understandable voice, he said, "You're beautiful. But Beatrice told me you're more than beautiful. She said you have a backbone of steel." Sarah felt her face heat up. "Your son brings out my best, and sometimes my most stubborn." A smile, slightly crooked due to the stroke but genuine, spread across Charles's face. "Good. David needs someone stubborn. He's too good for his own good sometimes. He inherited that from his mother." He gestured to the nearby chairs. "Sit, and girl," he looked at Emily, "you don't need to be afraid of an old man. I don't bite much." Emily laughed nervously, but stepped out from behind Sarah, looking fascinated at Charles. "Did you have a stroke?" "My teacher had a stroke too. She came back different, but she's still nice." "Emily!" Sarah began, mortified, but Charles laughed, a rough but amused sound. "Honest child, I like that. Yes, little one, I had a stroke. It messed up my body, but my head still works, most of the time." "That's good. A working head is important." "It is. Are you as smart as your mom?" "I am, and I protect her like you protect David." Charles looked at Sarah with approval. "You raised this girl well." "She mostly raised herself. I just tried not to mess her up too much." For the next hour they talked. Charles asked direct questions about Sarah's childhood, about how she raised Emily alone, about her work, her plans for the future. They weren't invasive questions, but deep, seeking to understand who Sarah really was, beyond what appearances suggested. Sarah answered honestly. She spoke about growing up poor but loved, about becoming a mother young and being abandoned, about building a life with her own hands, about the fears she still had about not being enough. She didn't embellish, didn't pretend. She was just herself, vulnerable but strong, scared but determined. "Do you love my son?" Charles eventually asked, straightforwardly. "I do. More than I thought I could love someone again." "And he loves you. I see it in his eyes. He never looked at Helen like that, never looked at anyone like that." Charles leaned forward with effort. "But love alone isn't enough. It needs work, commitment, a willingness to fight when it gets tough. Are you ready for that?" "I don't know if anyone is completely ready, but I'm willing, and I will fight, not just for him, but for us, him, me, and Emily. We will fight to build something real." Charles nodded slowly. "Beatrice was right. About you. Backbone of steel." He looked at his son. "Don't let her go, David. Women like that are rare." "I have no intention of letting her go." Beatrice appeared at the library door. "Lunch is ready. And Emily, there's a surprise for you in the garden if you want to see it before eating." The girl looked at Sarah with a silent question. Sarah nodded. "You can go, but stay close to the house." Beatrice extended her hand to Emily, a gesture that surprised Sarah. "I'll show you. There's a family of rabbits that lives in the bushes. Sometimes they come out to eat." "Rabbits? For real?" Emily took Beatrice's hand without hesitation, and the two went out, the girl's excited voice echoing down the hallway. Charles watched through the window as the two figures walked through the garden. Beatrice was never good with kids. Even with David, she was more formal. But look at her now, holding the girl's hand, pointing out things. Maybe she's maturing, or maybe your daughter has a gift for breaking barriers. "Emily has that effect on people," Sarah said with gentle pride. "She sees kindness where others see complication." They had lunch. In the spacious dining room, a solid wood table that easily seated 12, but today just the 5. Charles at the head, Beatrice and David on one side, Sarah and Emily on the other. The lamb was perfect, accompanied by roasted potatoes and grilled vegetables. Emily, usually shy with new food, tried everything under Beatrice's gentle encouragement, who shared stories about how David was picky with food as a child. He only ate pasta. For 2 years, just pasta, Beatrice recounted, a ghost of a smile on her lips. I was desperate, took him to a nutritionist, tried bribery. Nothing worked. What worked? Emily asked, fascinated. One day he saw his dad eating ribeye steak and decided he wanted to be big and strong like Dad. He ate the whole ribeye and never complained about food again. David rolled his eyes but was smiling. Thanks for sharing embarrassing stories, Mom. It's for Sarah to know what she's getting into. It was light. It was almost familiar. Sarah could hardly believe this was the same woman who weeks ago had tried to convince her to give up on David. After lunch, while Charles took a nap, the stroke tired him easily. Beatrice took Emily to see the hedge maze. Sarah and David stayed in the main room, sitting on the sofa facing the fireplace, with freshly brewed coffee steaming in porcelain cups. "It's going well," David said quietly, pulling Sarah closer. "Better than I imagined. Your mum is different, softer. My dad has that effect on her, and honestly, I think she sees that you're not going to give up easily. Beatrice respects determination. She just doesn't respect weakness. And I showed that I'm not weak. You showed that you're the strongest person I know." They stayed like that for a while, just absorbing the moment, the warmth of the fireplace and the tranquility of the mountains. Outside they could hear Emily's laughter as Beatrice helped her navigate the hedge maze. "David," Sarah eventually said, "have you thought about what it will be like? Not now, but a year from now, 2 years? How do we fully integrate our lives?" "I think about it every day." He turned to look at her directly. "I think about you and Emily moving to a bigger house with a yard for her to play in. I think about marrying you if and when you're ready. I think about officially adopting Emily if she wants. I think about maybe having more children if you want. I think about building a real family, not just the appearance of one." Sarah felt tears welling up. "That's a lot. It's scary how much it is." "I know, and I'm not pushing. We can go at the pace you need, but Sarah—" He held her face in his hands. "I see a future with you. A real, long-term future, one of building together, and I want you to know that." "I see it too, and it terrifies me because I've bet on a future before and it went wrong. But with you, I want to try again." They kissed there in his family's mountain house, sealing unspoken promises of possible futures. Beatrice's voice interrupted them from the garden. "David, Sarah, come see!" They stepped out and found Emily in the center of the maze, surrounded by rabbits, at least 6 of them, munching on carrots that Beatrice had apparently brought. The girl was motionless, enchanted, whispering to the animals as if they were secret friends. "She has a way," Beatrice commented softly to Sarah. "With animals, with people, you've raised a special girl. Thank you, and thank you for today, for giving a chance." Beatrice looked at her, and there was something new in her eyes. It wasn't exactly warmth, but it was recognition, respect. "You fought for him, you fought for you both. I can respect that, even if I still have reservations." She paused. "And maybe I was wrong. About you not being suitable. Maybe suitability is overrated and authenticity is underestimated. It's hard for me to believe I'm hearing this from you. It's hard for me to say. But Charles reminded me last night of something I had forgotten. He and I came from different worlds too. My family was wealthy, his not so much. There were judgments, doubts, people saying we wouldn't work. But we did. For 48 years, we made it work. Until the stroke, until the complications, we made it work because we fought." Beatrice looked at David and Sarah. "Maybe you two will work too, if you fight hard enough." It was the closest to a blessing that Sarah would receive, and she accepted it with gratitude. The rest of the day passed in Unexpected tranquility. They had an early dinner, lentil soup and homemade bread that was in the slow cooker. Charles joined them, more tired but still present. Emily recounted the rabbit stories repeatedly, each account more embellished than the last, making everyone laugh. As it began to darken and it became clear they needed to return to New York, Emily resisted. "I don't want to go. I want to stay with the rabbits." "We'll come back," Beatrice said unexpectedly. "Not in the next few weeks, I'm too busy. But maybe next month, you, your mom, David, you can spend the weekend. The rabbits will be here waiting." Emily looked at Sarah with pleading eyes. Sarah looked at David, who nodded encouragingly. "That would be lovely. Thank you." At the farewell, Charles called Sarah for a moment in the library, while David helped Emily with her coat. "Are you going to hurt my son?" he asked bluntly. "Not intentionally. But I can't promise I never will. Relationships are complicated." "Honesty? Good." He picked something up from the table beside him, a small blue velvet box. "This was my mother's. She was an Italian immigrant, came to America with nothing, built a life with her own hands. It reminds me of you." Sarah opened the box hesitantly. Inside was a simple gold ring with a small sapphire. It wasn't ostentatious, it wasn't expensive by the standards of that family, but it was beautiful in its simplicity. "Mr. Anderson, I can't. It's not an engagement ring, not yet. It's just a reminder, from one strong woman to another. One day, when David asks you to marry him, and he will, you can bet on that, you can choose to wear this ring or another, but I want you to have this, to remember that you have a place in this family, no matter what happens." Sarah felt tears spill over. "Thank you. I will honor this. I promise." "I know you will. Now go, before my son shows up and gets all emotional too." The Anderson men cry easily, though they would never admit it. On the drive back to New York, Emily fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately, exhausted from the day. Sarah looked out the window, Charles's ring secure in her pocket, processing everything. "Your dad gave me this," she eventually said, showing the box to David. He glanced quickly, then fixed his eyes back on the road, but Sarah saw emotion cross his face. "That was my great-grandmother's. He loves that ring. He's kept it for years. The fact that he gave it to you, what does it mean? It means he accepts you, completely. It means he sees you as family." "Does that make you happy or scared?" "Both, but more happy." They arrived at Sarah's apartment just before midnight. David carried Emily inside, laying her down on the bed still dressed, because the girl wouldn't wake up even with an earthquake. Sarah covered. Her daughter kissed her forehead and returned to the living room where David was waiting. "Stay," she whispered. "Just tonight. I want to wake up with you here." "Always, whenever you ask." They lay together on Sarah's bed, fully clothed, intertwined, and talked in the dark about the day, about family, about possible futures. At some point, they both fell asleep like that, safe and together. When Sarah woke up in the morning, with sunlight streaming through the window and David still sleeping beside her, Emily standing in the doorway, watching them with a thoughtful expression, she felt something fall into place. "Good morning, little one," she whispered. "Good morning, Mom. Did David sleep here?" "He did. Is everything okay?" Emily thought for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but now he has to make pancakes. It's the rule. Whoever sleeps here makes breakfast." David opened one eye, smiling sleepily. "Pancakes, I can make pancakes. Challenge accepted." And there, on that Sunday morning in a simple apartment in Queens, the three made breakfast together. David burned the first batch of pancakes. Emily laughed so hard she almost fell off her chair, and Sarah watched it all with a heart so full it hurt. In the weeks that followed, life found a new rhythm. Sarah continued to coordinate the administrative department with excellence that silenced critics. David continued to lead the company, but with a more balanced presence, leaving on time, prioritizing weekends, finding ways to be present in real life beyond work. Emily flourished. She had a routine now that included David naturally, weekly dinners, Saturday outings, help with homework. The girl began to call him Dave, a nickname that no one else used but that he loved. And Sarah learned to accept happiness without guilt. She learned that love didn't have to be complicated when based on honesty and respect. She learned that family could be built, not just inherited. There were challenges, of course, there always were. Malicious comments from envious colleagues, articles in gossip columns about unlikely romance in the corporate world, moments of doubt when the difference in their world seemed insurmountable. But there were more good moments. Emily losing another baby tooth and making David promise that his tooth fairy, because a rich person must have a different tooth fairy, would leave more money. Beatrice showing up unannounced with used textbooks from David that could help with college. Charles calling just to chat with Sarah about how she was doing. And there was David, always David. Waking up early to pick up Sarah for work when it rained, showing up in the afternoon with her favorite coffee, sitting with Emily to watch Frozen for the 10th time without complaining, holding Sarah at night and whispering promises of futures built together. In December, 14 months after that disastrous first meeting at the restaurant in Brooklyn, David proposed to Sarah. It wasn't extravagant, it was on a normal Saturday after. Emily fell asleep in the kitchen of the apartment while they were having tea. It was simple. He knelt down, took her hand and said, "I want to build a whole life with you, with both of you, not because it's easy or convenient, but because I can't imagine any future without you. Will you marry me?" And Sarah, with tears streaming down her face and a heart so full she could barely breathe, said, "Yes. 1,000 times yes." They married in April, in a small ceremony in Aspen in Charles's backyard, only close family and true friends. Jessica as Sarah's maid of honor, Beatrice surprisingly emotional, Charles walking Sarah down the makeshift aisle under the pines despite the difficulties of his stroke, and Emily as the flower girl, scattering petals and whispering loud enough for everyone to hear, "Now we are a real family." Because they were, not a perfect family, no family is, but a real family, built with choice and love and daily struggle to be better, to love better, to build something worth all the hardships. And when Sarah looked around that day, at David promising to love her through all seasons, at Emily radiant in a princess dress this time, at Beatrice discreetly wiping away tears, at Charles smiling with pride, at all the guests witnessing something that so many said was impossible, she understood something fundamental. Love was not forbidden. It never was. It was just frighteningly difficult, courageously built, and valuably earned one day, one choice, one struggle at a time. And it was worth every second.